Chapter 185. After Ouyang Shua browsed through the settings of achievement value and confirmed that it was the same as in his previous life, he began to check whether the system update was the same as in his previous life. He was really afraid that he would cause some butterfly effect. 1. Setting of death penalty. Players who died were no longer like before, where they would simply drop one level. Instead, their level would be reset to 0, and all their items, except for those in the storage bag, would be dropped. The setting of death penalty was to prevent territories from using human wave tactic. For example, Red Blood County of Battlewolf had formed a pure player army. If players died, they would only drop one level, but the death of the opposing NPC army would be a real death. Then in the later stages, when the players' levels increased, the army formed by players would be invincible. Such a human wave tactic was inconsistent with the original intention of the territory's construction model, so it was naturally not allowed. 2. Setting of teleportation arrays. The territory teleportation array only allowed people to teleport, not items, unless they were placed in the player's storage bag. For example, when Ouyang Shua ordered Wang Yuanfeng to rush to Luofeng town as reinforcements and teleport with the 3 bows and 8 bulls bed crossbow, it was no longer allowed. Unless Ouyang Shua's storage bag was big enough to store the 3 bows and 8 bulls bed crossbow in it and personally deliver it to Luofeng town. The setting of teleportation arrays was to prevent smuggling by Lord players. That's right, smuggling. Think about it, if a group of lords formed an alliance, as long as one of their members was close enough to the system royal city, the other lords could directly transport goods to the system city through the teleportation arrays between their allies and sell them, thereby avoiding the market transaction tax. If this wasn't smuggling, what was it? If they used a storage bag to transport goods, because the storage bag's capacity was limited, the teleportation cost could be equivalent to the transaction tax if they teleported multiple times. It wasn't very cost-effective. Of course, it was impossible to completely eliminate it. It could only limit rampant smuggling. 3. Setting of the market. The advanced market had 4 platforms: the material trading platform, the special item trading platform, the time-limited auction platform, and the negotiation and cooperation platform. After the update, the material trading platform and the special item trading platform would be cancelled. At the same time, the time-limited auction platform, the negotiation and cooperation platform, and the real-time auction platform between players would be integrated into a unified platform called the Super Auction Platform. On the Super Auction Platform, whether it was adventurer players, lord players, or the NPC chambers of commerce in the System Royal City, they could complete the 4 operations: placing an order, accepting an order, and bidding. Placing an order meant stating one's purchase needs. To put up an order was to sell one's goods. Accepting orders meant accepting orders from others. To bid was to buy the goods that others were selling. For every transaction completed on the Super Auction Platform, the system would collect 10% transaction tax from the seller. Compared to the previous market transaction tax of 20%, it was directly reduced by half. The biggest difference between the Super Auction Platform and the market was the introduction of price competition. The price of the goods would fluctuate in real time according to the supply and demand relationship. It would no longer be fixed by the system like before. Another difference was that special items were no longer sold by the system, including building blueprints. Players had to go to the platform to purchase items. It was no longer as convenient and fast as before. The variety of items was also not as abundant as before. As for the blueprints, they were only sold in the royal city. Lords could either find someone to purchase them on their behalf, or they could only purchase high-priced building blueprints sold by speculators on the Super Auction Platform. Apart from that, there were also military items such as military ration pills, military tents, and fierce fire oil tanks on the list of prohibited items. The only way for a lord to obtain these items was through smuggling. The setting of the market was because after half a year of development, most territories had passed the most difficult period of survival. Their dependence on the market was decreasing, and they no longer needed the system to babysit them. Making timely adjustments to the market was also a test for the Lord players. 4. Setting of the courier station. Players must mail items, including letters, through the courier station. The courier station charges postage according to the distance, size, weight, and rarity of the item. This meant that the pigeon mail would be cancelled. If players wanted to send messages, they would either use the channel or write letters, and then mail letters through the courier station. Canceling the pigeon mail would basically eliminate the possibility of players' spies sending messages on the battlefield. Currently, there were only 3 channels that players could use: the National Channel, the Alliance Channel, and the Guild Channel. The National Channel and the Alliance Channel were obviously not feasible. As for the Guild Channel, Guild members would wear Guild emblems on their chests, so it was also not feasible. Ouyang Shua's previous practice of directly mailing packages to Song Jia had been banned. Even if one wanted to mail gold coins, they had to go through the courier station. The setting of the courier station not only made full use of the courier station as the basic building of a level 2 town, but also regulated the mailing of packages to prevent players from mailing them anywhere at any time, which seemed a bit childish. 5. Setting of the timeline. The growth cycle of all crops and livestock in the game will be kept in sync with reality, and the previous setting of accelerated growth cycle will be cancelled. The adjustment of the timeline will also further improve the game's realism. For example, the wild boars and bison raised in Shanghai County would be out 3 months before the update. Now, it would take more than half a year or even a year. 6. Setting of the army. First, the adjustment of the soldiers' levels. Officially, above the rank 9 elite soldiers, the rank 10 to rank 12 elite soldiers will be added. Second, the adjustment of the army will increase the characteristics of the army. Divisions and above can participate in the army trial, and after the trial is successful, they will obtain exclusive characteristics. After the adjustment of the soldiers' levels, the rank 9 elite soldiers can choose from 2 development paths. If they choose to change their profession to a junior general, they will increase their commander. If they choose to continue to advance to an elite soldier, they will increase their combat power. Both have their own advantages, and they are evenly matched. The setting of the army is equivalent to enriching the gameplay of the army, adding more possibilities. 7. Setting of the manual mode. Items designed by players must be verified by the system before they can take effect. They must have the relevant attributes, or they will not be effective. 8. Setting of the noble rank. Above the Duke, there will be the noble rank, which is the Son of Heaven noble rank. Those who advance to the noble rank can establish a country and be called a king. The noble rank requires 2 million contribution points, which is twice that of a duke. As for the update of the game settings, there were only these 8 points. As for how deep the impact it would have on the game, it still needed time to test. Other than the system update, Gaia also announced the truth of authentic manuals on its official website, as well as the method to identify them. Without a doubt, the price of authentic manuals in the game would rise crazily. Ouyang Shua wanted to know how much the 120 authentic gold-level manuals he hoarded would bring him in the end. Ouyang Shua exited the official website, and the moment he returned to the game, he heard a system announcement. System announcement. Half a year has passed and heroes have emerged. Officially opening the territory leaderboard, guild leaderboard, and people leaderboard. Please check for yourselves. System announcement. Half a year has passed and heroes have emerged. Officially opening the territory leaderboard, guild leaderboard, and people leaderboard. Please check for yourselves. System announcement. Half a year has passed and heroes have emerged. Officially opening the territory leaderboard, guild leaderboard, and people leaderboard. Please check for yourselves. The 3 most authoritative leaderboards in the game were finally opened. Ouyang Shua began to check them one by one. First was the territory leaderboard. It was the most important leaderboard for territory construction mode. Ranking Territory 1 Shanghai County. How say you have no clothes? 2 Danyang County, Lord Chunshan. 3 Luofeng County, Feng Chihuang, 4th place. Red Blood County, Wolf Warrior, 5th place. Lingxi County, White Birch, 6th. Swordsman County, Feng Qingyang, 7th place. Handan County, Dichen. Note: the territory leaderboard only includes the territory above the county level. If the level is the same, the ranking is based on the order of promotion. Second was the guild leaderboard. It was the most important leaderboard for adventure mode. Ranking: Guild Leaderboard 1 Baleful Blood Mercenary Group, Crimson Romance, 2nd place. Morning Snow Rose Mercenary Group, 3 Crisscrossing Sword, 1 Sword from the West, 4 18 Steeds of Swallow and Cloud, Swallow Lisan, 5 Embroidered Uniform Guard, Embroidered Spring Saber, 6th place. Flowing Light Pavilion June is Old, 7th place. A Thread of Love, Love Not, 8th place. Breeze Pavilion Bright Moon Illuminates the River, 9th place. Listen to the Rain Tower, Thunderous Sword Energy, 10 Laojun Guan Green Bull Daoist. Among the top 10 mercenary groups or guilds, Baleful Blood Mercenary Group and Snow Rose belonged to the Comprehensive Guild. They were the strongest, and the various professions in the guild were relatively balanced. The other 8 guilds had their own specialties. Crisscrossing Sword Chi mainly recruited warriors, 18 Steeds of Yen and Yun mainly recruited generals, Genie Guards mainly recruited bailiffs, Flowing Light Pavilion mainly recruited healers, and Laojun Temple mainly recruited Taoists. Breeze Pavilion and Tingyu Pavilion mainly recruited strategists who were engaged in intelligence work. A Thread was the most special. They mainly recruited life profession players, and could be considered the most unusual among the top 10 guilds. Starting with a life profession, they could still be ranked 7th. From this, it could be seen how powerful A Thread's leader was. Ouyang Shua also knew that Breeze Pavilion was actually a peripheral guild of Spirit Rhino Studio. Their leader, Bright Moon Illuminates the Great River, was Bai Hua's big brother. 1 Sword from the West and Sword Thunderous Sword, in the previous game, were originally a heroic couple, but then they had a falling out. After they broke up, they each formed a guild in Only on Earth. Sword Thunderous Sword changed his ID because of love, and regarded Crisscrossing Sword as his mortal enemy. To be continued. Chapter 186. Finally, there was the God's Domain Celebrity Ranking. It was the only ranking for individual players. First place. A How Do I Say I Have No Clothes evaluation. Lord of Shanghai County, First Class Earl, has reached the top of the world 3 times, stirring up a storm and dominating all heroes. He is truly the most influential person in the world and deserves to be the top. Second place. A Bloody Romance evaluation. Bloody Mercenary Group Leader, the top adventurer player. Whether it's individual strength or the strength of the guild, he stands at the top of the China server. He is an extraordinary man. Third place. Emperor Dust evaluation. The Lord of Handan County, 3rd rank Earl, formerly the head of the 6 hegemons of Handan, once ranked among the top 10 in the world. Due to sudden changes in the world, he fell from grace and was able to rise again. He is indeed worthy of the name of the brave. 4th place. Qingyang Feng evaluation. Lord of Jianxia County, sect leader of Green Sun Sword Sect, 3rd rank Earl, founder of the first sect in China region, holds 2 positions, top in both civil and military affairs. Note: the Windcloud celebrity list only records the most influential people. Those who are not heroes of the age are not allowed to enter this list. The Windcloud celebrity list was one of the strictest lists. Currently, it only recorded 4 people. Every person who made it onto the leaderboard would not only receive an official evaluation, but they would also receive additional rewards. It could be said that they had gained both fame and fortune. As expected, the sound of the system's notification entered Ouyang Shua's ears. System notice. Congratulations to player not have clothes for reaching the top of the God's Domain Celebrity Ranking Board. Favorability with historical characters increased by 10, rewarding 10,000 reputation points. This was the highest amount of reputation points Ouyang Shua had ever received. After checking the rankings, Ouyang Shua finally had time to contact his aunt, Sun Xiaoye, Song Jia, and Lu Mo. Unfortunately, because of the system update, he could no longer send messenger pigeons. He could only return to his office and write letters to the four of them. Ouyang Shua didn't say much to his aunt. He only invited her and Xiesiun to Shanhai County as guests. In the letter he wrote to Sun Xiaoye, Ouyang Shua informed her of his identity and asked her to report the name list of her grandfather and the scientists her grandfather had gathered to him so that he could add the name list to the transmission array. Other than that, members of the Falling Moon Society who were willing to settle down in Shanhai County could also submit a name list. At the end of the letter, Ouyang Shua also inquired about Sun Xiaoye's contact with the Chui family. He instructed Sun Xiaoye to make sure that the Chui family was contacted before teleporting over. In the letter to Song Jia, Ouyang Shua not only informed her of his identity, but also mentioned the cooperation between Shanhai County and Heavenly Frost Town. Ouyang Shua said frankly that he could not accept Heavenly Frost Town into the Mountain and Sea Alliance for the time being. However, Mountain and Sea County could enter into a unilateral alliance with Heavenly Frost Town, and Heavenly Frost Town would also have priority in purchasing weapons and equipment. Ouyang Shua could be considered to have put in a lot of effort. He didn't want to abuse his power for personal gain, but he also had to fulfill his promise to Songwon. He didn't want to go back on his words. Ouyang Shua directly added Lu Mo's ID, bullet out, to the teleportation circle so that he could teleport over as soon as possible. Of course, it would be best to bring his family along. In reality, Ouyang Shua had spoken to Lu Mo a few times. He knew that Lu Mo had gone home to reunite with his parents after Ouyang Shua's persuasion. They were probably playing together now. After writing the letter, Ouyang Shua called the concierge and asked him to send the letter through the courier station. After the county was renovated, the courier station was moved to the north gate of the second city wall. It was 5 kilometers away from the Lord's mansion, so Ouyang Shua wouldn't go there himself. As for the cost of sending the letter, it was only 1 or 2 silver coins. When the concierge returned, he could just go to Zisu to collect it. On the second day after Zisu arrived at the Lord's mansion, Si Qin, under Yingyu's instructions, handed over the position of the jewelry shop's shopkeeper to Zisu. Zisu, in turn, became the manager of the Lord's mansion. When Ouyang Shua found out, he didn't mistreat Si Qin. He bought the cosmetic shop and gave it to Si Qin to manage. Of course, whether it was the jewelry shop or the cosmetics shop, they all belonged to the Lord's mansion. In other words, it was Ouyang Shua's private property. The profits were all used for the Lord's mansion's daily expenses. It didn't belong to any servant girl. Jianye, Snow Rose Mercenary Group's base. Lin Jing accepted the letter delivered by the postman. Mian grinned. Not far away, Xiesiun asked curiously, Jing, who wrote you this letter? Take a guess. Xiesiun's brows furrowed. That nephew of yours? Smart. Xiesiun shook her head and said, Now can you tell me who your nephew is? Lin Jing was in a good mood. She smiled and said, Who do you think is the most famous person in China? Who is the most famous? Xiesiun thought for a moment and said, Right now, the most famous person should be the Lord of Shanhai County, not saying that he has no clothes. Xiesiun was shocked. Her eyes widened and she stuttered. This kind of situation was really rare for the Ice Queen. Jing Jing, you can't tell me that not saying that he has no clothes is your nephew. Lin Jing was still heartless. She snapped her fingers and didn't act like a lady at all. Bingo. Correct. F***CKU. Xie was completely speechless. I was wondering why you and your nephew have been so secretive lately. When you arrived in Shanghai, you didn't even stop for a moment and immediately boarded the ship. So you really are a giant crocodile. Lin Jing opened the letter and glanced at it. She smiled and said, "No matter what, he's a powerful foreign aid for Snow Rose, isn't he? You should know that Xiao Shua bought 3 weapons and equipment crafting manuals in the first system auction. Are you confident about our cooperation now?" Of course, Lin Jing was very proud of herself. Her nephew was really capable. Didn't he see that Si Yun, who was usually as cold as ice, was not calm at all? Xie Yun was not an ordinary person. She quickly calmed down and said, "Jing Jing, you're right. Shanghai County is a very suitable partner. Why did he write this letter?" Lin Jing nodded. "Yes, Xiao Shua invited us to Shanghai County as guests. I think he wants to discuss the future cooperation. What do you think? Are you interested?" "Of course. It's the best county in the world. I want to see it." Xie Yun nodded in agreement. Chuanzhou blacksmith shop. The bullet left the chamber, which was the real Lu Mo, when he received Ouyang Shua's letter. He chuckled. "This little brother of mine is really amazing." Lu Mo put down the letter and said to the blacksmith shop's shopkeeper, "Shopkeeper, I want to resign." "Resign? Young man, how long have you been working? Don't bite off more than you can chew. Don't think that you'll become arrogant just because you've learned some superficial knowledge." The shopkeeper's words were a little harsh. Lu Mo didn't mind. He waved his hand. "Shopkeeper, you don't have to persuade me. I won't ask you for the rest of my salary." Then, he walked out of the blacksmith shop, leaving the apprentices in the shop with a cool back view. Lu Mo walked out of the blacksmith shop and passed through the streets and alleys. After a few turns, he finally returned to the house he temporarily rented in the city. The house was shabby, narrow, and unhygienic. However, such conditions were considered good among the players who had just joined the game. One could imagine what it would be like to have tens of millions of players swarming into the city. After reaching home, Lu Mo immediately wrote a letter to Ouyang Shua, telling him his parents' ID. After sending the letter, Lu Mo smiled and said to his parents, "Dad, Mom, pack up. We're moving to a new place today." Lu Mo's parents were already in their 50s. The 2 elders didn't expect that they would suffer like this after entering the game. The place they were living in was even worse than their own storeroom in real life. Fortunately, their son had changed his mind and was willing to stay by their side. This was more important than anything else. A little suffering was nothing. Moreover, seeing their son working hard in the blacksmith shop every day, the 2 elders felt very apologetic. They felt that they were burdening their son. Now that they heard that they were moving, they thought that something had gone wrong. They worriedly asked, "Son, is there something wrong at work?" Lu Mo's eyes were a little moist. Ever since he returned to his parents' side, he realized how much he owed them. "Dad, Mom, don't worry. It's a good thing." "A good thing?" The 2 elders were still a little confused. Lu Mo nodded affirmatively. "That's right. Do you still remember the little brother that I mentioned to you earlier, the one that I somehow made friends with in the old district in the suburbs? Are you talking about the young man who persuaded you to go home?" Lu Mo's mother was a little emotional. The 2 elders were very grateful to this good man who persuaded their son to change his mind. "Yes, it's him. Just now, he wrote me a letter and told me that his identity in the game was actually the most famous person in the game, the Lord of Shanghai County. He invited us to settle down in Shanghai County," Lu Mo explained. The 2 elders were also a little emotional, but then they were a little worried. If we go like this, will we disturb him and cause him trouble?" Lu Mo shook his head. "Don't worry. This little brother of mine is obviously a forthright person. Besides, going to Shanghai County is not going to be a freeloader. According to little brother, my abilities will be put to good use in Shanghai County. Good, good, good. The two elders were relieved. What a simple and cute Chinese. Quanzhou, Heavenly Frost Town. Song Jia opened the letter. After reading it, the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. She said coquettishly, "Stupid blockhead, you really weren't bragging." In fact, Song Jia liked Ouyang Shua. No matter what Ouyang Shua achieved in the game, she would only be happy for him. Song Jia was happy because Ouyang Shua's achievements were enough to clear the obstacles between the two of them. Song Jia was very curious. When this letter reached her grandfather's hands, how would that stubborn and sophisticated old man react? At the end of the day, Song Jia was resentful that her grandfather had bypassed her and arranged a marriage with the Ruan family. To be continued. Chapter 187. Dolly, Fallen Moon Society's Base. Grandpa, there's a letter from Ouyang. Sun Xiaoye walked into the small courtyard, her face full of joy. At this moment, elder Sun was sitting in the courtyard with a group of old men playing chess. Upon hearing this, he raised his head and pretended to be angry and said, "That stinky brat Ouyang talks so much on the phone, but in the end, he just left us old men and Dolly for a whole month. That's outrageous. The next time I see him, I'll teach him a lesson." The surrounding old men also started to jeer. Some of them who were not serious immediately teased, "I say, old Sun, can you still beat these old bones of yours? Do you need my help? Ha ha." Elder Sun was so angry that he spat, "Old Li, you're no better than me. Don't you feel embarrassed talking to me?" Sun Xiaoye held her forehead, clearly helpless against this group of old urchins. "Grandpas, do you want to leave Dolly or not? If you do, then let me finish." Say it, say it." Elder Sun signaled for everyone to quiet down. "I want to know who that Ouyang kid is in the game. He's acting so mysterious and made us wait for so long." Sun Xiaoye smiled mischievously. "Grandpa, if I tell you, you'll be shocked. So Ouyang is the most powerful and mysterious lord in China. How can the lord of Shanghai County be without clothes?" "What? Shanghai County? The only second-class county in China?" Elder Sun was indeed surprised. "Yes, there's no other Shanghai County in China." Elder Sun's composure was much stronger than Xiexiun's. This group of old men had seen all kinds of storms and waves. Elder Sun stroked his beard. This long beard was specially added when he created the game character. He was extremely proud of himself. "Not bad, Ouyang is not a coward." "Grandpa, are you going to teleport now or wait for me?" Sun Xiaoye asked. "What do you mean? Girl, aren't you going now?" Elder Sun was a bit puzzled. Sun Xiaoye nodded. "It's like this. I have to go to the Chui residence to pass on a message for Ouyang Shua. How much time can that take? We've already waited for a month, so a little while doesn't matter. Little girl, you should come with us." Elder Sun was considerate of his granddaughter. "All right, Grandpa, I'll be going out for a while." Go! At 10 o'clock in the morning, Lu Mo and the others arrived at Shanghai County. When Ouyang Shua received the system notification, he rushed to the teleportation circle in advance to wait. Fortunately, the teleportation fee could be deducted from the account of the Bank of the Four Seas. Otherwise, the impoverished Ouyang Shua wouldn't even be able to pay for everyone's teleportation fees. Ouyang. Seeing Ouyang Shua, Lu Mo was somewhat excited. Ouyang Shua stepped forward and gave Lu Mo a hug. "Big brother Lu." Then, he greeted Lu Mo's parents. After exchanging pleasantries, Ouyang Shua invited them to the Lord's mansion. Looking at the imposing Lord's mansion, Lu Mo said emotionally, "Ouyang, it's really not bad." Ouyang Shua fell silent. He naturally knew why Lu Mo would sigh with such emotions. In his previous life, he was just like Lu Mo, living such a tough life, even causing Bing to suffer as well. In fact, Ouyang Shua had already ordered the construction department to set aside an area in the Western District, which was also the official residence district, and built hundreds of exquisite small courtyards to accommodate these special talents and their families. At 10 o'clock in the morning, little Aunt Lin Jing and Xie came hand in hand. Ouyang Shua asked Mr. Sven to accompany Lu Mo and the others in the reception room while he walked out of the Lord's mansion to welcome little Aunt. Before leaving, he specially went to the backyard to find Bing and asked her to go with him. Hearing that little Aunt was coming, Bing was very happy. She brought Schwer and Little Black with her. Little Aunt. Seeing Lin Jing coming out of the teleportation circle, Bing immediately stuck to her. Lin Jing was also very fond of this cute little niece of hers. Speaking of which, it was strange that the two of them had only met a few times, but they had already formed a deep bond. Lin Jing carried Bing and asked, Bing are you used to being in the game? Yes. Bing nodded vigorously and said happily, Little Aunt, it's fun here. There's a lot of delicious food and beautiful clothes. Only then did Lin Jing notice what Bing was wearing. Bing was wearing a red princess dress today. The fabric was made of high-quality colored silk, and after going through the hands of a master tailor, Qing the workmanship was exquisite and exceptionally gorgeous. Lin Jing nodded to herself. It seemed that little Shua took good care of Bing. Ouyang Shua nodded at Xie as a greeting. Towards this uncle, Ouyang Shua really didn't know how to address him, nor did he know how to interact with him. The atmosphere was a little awkward. Little Aunt, come in and have a seat. There are a few guests here, Ouyang Shua said with a smile. Sure, who's coming? Lin Jing couldn't hide her words. Ouyang Shua didn't mind. Ever since the spaceship took off, he had no scruples. It's a big brother I met in real life. He's a firearms expert. Firearms? Xie, who had been silent, finally couldn't help but speak. Not only was Xie thinking sharp, but she also had a deep understanding of the game. She immediately made a series of connections. That's right. Kid, you're very ambitious. Lin Jing naturally wasn't someone easy to deal with. Ouyang Shua smiled without saying a word. Walking into the Lord's mansion, Lin Jing looked around and said with a teasing tone, Little Shua, your mansion is really big. It's much grander than our guild's encampment. Before Ouyang Shua could say anything, Bing began to show off again. She said in a crisp voice, Little Aunt, Bing courtyard is even more beautiful than this. There's even a garden at the back. In the guest room, Ouyang Shua gave a simple introduction to both parties. Ouyang Shua saw that Lu Mo's parents were a little reserved, so he smiled and said, Big brother Lu, I'll bring you to the courtyard that I've arranged for you. Let's see if Uncle and Auntie are satisfied with it and if you want to add anything else. Sure. Lu Mo wasn't a talkative person. In front of the two beauties, Lin Jing and Xie, he felt uncomfortable and wanted to leave as soon as possible. Ouyang Shua called Yu over and asked her to accompany little Aunt and Xie to the territory. Bing took the initiative to bring little Aunt to her room. Lin Jing naturally agreed. Ouyang Shua brought the three of them out of the mansion and passed through the west gate to the West District. The West District belonged to the official residence district and the living conditions were excellent. All the courtyards were built with green bricks and tiles. According to the specifications of the courtyards, the area ranged from 400 square meters to 2,000 square meters. Aside from the courtyards, the official residence district also had a farmer's market, a courier station, a grocery store, a medical center, a private school, a martial arts school, a pharmacy, a jewelry store, a restaurant, and a cosmetics store. Therefore, the official residence district was a closed community that was completely self-sufficient. Trees were planted on both sides of the road and the environment was very elegant. Ouyang Shua even planned a public garden that occupied 1 hectare, which was 10,000 square meters, in the center of the official residence district. Today, this southern garden named West Forest was still under construction. Excluding the area occupied by these facilities, the official residence district still had a planned number of 2,500 courtyards, which was enough to support the capital city. One must know that during the Tang dynasty, there were only 2,600 internal officials. Naturally, such a large group of courtyards couldn't be built in a short period of time. It would take at least a year. Ouyang Shua had specially planned 100 courtyards with different design styles. It wasn't a closed courtyard with a patio like those in the south in ancient times, but a modern villa district. Every courtyard had a front and back garden, and according to the specifications, the area was divided into two grades, 1,000 square meters and 2,000 square meters. As of now, 50 villas had been built, and all of them would be completed in a month. Ouyang Shua led the three of them to a villa that occupied an area of 2,000 square meters and smiled. "Big Brother Lu, this is the residence I've prepared for you. How is it? Can you live here?" Lu Mo bitterly smiled and shook his head. "Not only can we live here, but we also can't live in such a luxurious villa in reality. Compared to the house we rented in Dali, it's like heaven and earth." "It's good that Big Brother Lu is satisfied." Ouyang Shua turned his head and said, "Uncle and Auntie, Shanghai County will be your home from now on. I won't disturb you any longer." Ouyang Shua bid his farewell and left, giving the Lu family some space. It looks like you've made an amazing brother. You must work hard in the future so that you won't let him down," Lu Mo's father said in a dignified tone. Lu Mo nodded. "Father, don't worry. Come, let's take a look inside the house." Leaving aside how Lu Mo and his family toured his house, Ouyang Shua returned to the Lord's mansion. The gatekeeper told Ouyang Shua that Miss Lin and her party were in the back garden. Ouyang Shua walked to the back garden and heard Binger's crisp laughter. Ever since the territory was promoted to a first-rate county, Ouyang Shua rarely came here. On the other hand, Binger had become a frequent visitor. The entire garden was similar to Suzhou's garden, but it was a mix of cultural elements from Lingnan and Guangxi. It was extremely unique. The garden was a mountain forest in the city that was filled with natural charm. Living in a bustling city, one could enjoy the joy of nature as soon as they entered the garden. In this condensed nature, a spoonful of water and a fist of a mountain could be used. The 4 seasons in the garden, as well as the withering and flourishing of plants in spring and autumn, allowed people to enjoy the joy of the mountain forest without leaving the city walls, and enjoy the joy of the forest while living in a bustling city. In the garden, ponds and mountains were dug, flowers and trees were planted. It was full of interest and had a profound artistic conception. Of course, what attracted Binger the most were the various flowers and fruit trees that matched the scenery. The fake mountains and ponds were all Binger's playground. The little girl played here all day, and sometimes even dragged Zissou and Banksia along to play hide-and-seek with her. She enjoyed it immensely. To be continued. Chapter 188. At noon, Ouyang Shua hosted a banquet to entertain Xie and the others at the Lord's mansion. He had already received Sun Xiaoya's reply and knew that Sun Xiaoya would lead a group of players to Shanghai County in the afternoon. The players that Sun Xiaoya brought were divided into 2 groups. The most important group was, of course, the expert team that Ouyang Shua had been looking forward to. There were a total of 30 experts, ranging from shipbuilding, metallurgy, economics, chemistry, medicine, machinery, engineering, agriculture, and other specialties. The 30 top experts, including their relatives, totaled 150 people. Each expert was assigned a courtyard that covered an area of 2,000 square meters. The second group was the members of the Falling Moon Society, who also brought their families. Before the deadline, the Falling Moon Society had a total of 400 members. When Sun Xiaoya announced that Shanghai County was willing to accept the members of the Falling Moon Society, 350 people were willing to settle down in Shanghai County. The remaining 50 people had already established themselves in the capital and were unwilling to move. As the saying went, Those who were unwilling to go were all sent away by Sun Xiaoye. The members of the Falling Moon Society had a total of 1,850 people with their families. Together with the 150 experts, there were a total of 2,000 players teleported from Dali. The 6 core members of the Falling Moon Society were the alchemist Autumn Leaf, the bridge designer 5 Feet, the municipal engineer Drawing Board, the cartographer 9-Line, and Sun Xiaoye's former roommates Qin Ruo and Pan Qiao. As for their boyfriends, because they were combat professionals, they were only classified as ordinary members. The core members were settled in the official residence area by Ouyang Shuo, and each of them was assigned a courtyard that covered an area of 1,000 square meters. The remaining members of the Falling Moon Society were settled in the residential area, and each of them was given an ordinary courtyard. Since Sun Xiaoye settled in Shanhai County, she couldn't teleport back to Dali. In addition, the headquarters of the Breeze Pavilion, a peripheral guild of Spirit Rhino Studio, was in Dali, so Ouyang Shuo simply asked her to withdraw the Falling Moon Society from Dali. As a result, the Falling Moon Society became the first and possibly the only player guild to settle down in Shanhai County. Ouyang Shuo planned to take all the professional players recruited by Snow Rose who were willing to settle down in Shanhai County into the Falling Moon Society for unified management. This time, Sun Xiaoye rushed over from Dali with the gift that the Chui residents entrusted her to deliver to Yingyu. The gifts were packed in 2 big wooden boxes. One box was filled with the jewelry and clothes that Yingyu usually used. The other box was filled with gold coins, a total of 10,000. According to the Chui residents, these 10,000 gold coins were pocket money for Yingyu. It was indeed a large business group. Its wealth was not something that the current Shanhai County could compare to. Yingyu did not keep the 10,000 gold coins sent by her family, but deposited it in the Bank of the Four Seas. This also became the largest deposit business since the establishment of the Bank of the Four Seas. Seeing that her elder sister's savings had increased by 10,000 gold coins, the little money grubber Qing was inwardly envious. She wondered when she would be able to accumulate so much money. In fact, with the workshop's profitability, it was only a matter of time before they accumulated 10,000 gold coins. Yingyu deposited her money into the Bank of the Four Seas. Every month, she could earn 100 gold coins in interest, which was enough for her daily expenses. If the Bank of the Four Seas obtained this deposit, as long as it was lent out in a timely manner, it would be able to earn at least 300 gold coins in interest each month. Moreover, it was a compound interest. With 1 deposit and 1 loan, they would be able to earn at least 200 gold coins per month. This was how the Bank of the Four Seas made money. Yinyu's deposit could be considered to have solved Shanhai County's urgent need. Ouyang Shuo had originally planned to transfer a sum of money from the funds at the end of June to the Bank of the Four Seas to increase its reserve fund. Unfortunately, the large purchase had depleted all of the funds. With the rapid development of the territory's economy, the demand for loans had skyrocketed. The 1,350 gold coins deposited in mid-May had almost been used up. They could only rely on the deposits of individual investors to maintain their lending business. With this deposit, the Bank of the Four Seas would be able to sustain itself for a long time. Other than the 2 boxes of gifts, the Chui residents had also brought a contract. As long as Ouyang Shuo agreed, it would take effect immediately. The contract stipulated that the Chui family's Chamber of Commerce would be the sole agent of Shanhai County in Dali. They would be responsible for the sale of Shanhai County's specialties and other goods. After the system update, the market transaction tax had been reduced to 10%, which was the same as the transaction tax collected by the grocery store. This also meant that the grocery store's exclusive advantage in selling specialties would no longer exist. It would be better to place orders through the super trading platform. After all, the super trading platform's market was countless times larger than the grocery store's system. In return, the Chui family's Chamber of Commerce would pay Shanghai County an agency fee of 2% of the total annual transaction volume. At the same time, the Chui family's Chamber of Commerce could also collect all kinds of rare goods for Shanghai County and become Shanghai County's agent in the Supreme Court. The Chui family's Chamber of Commerce's business model was to break up the bulk goods purchased from Shanghai County into parts through their countless shops in Dali. From wholesale to retail, they would earn a profit from the price difference. This was a win-win cooperation. Ouyang Shua agreed without hesitation. In the future, Shanghai County would sell its goods through the super trading platform. After placing orders, the Chui family's Chamber of Commerce would take the orders. Only when the Chui family's Chamber of Commerce refused to take the orders would they be able to circulate freely in the market. Of course, if the Chui family's Chamber of Commerce refused to take the orders, it would affect the basis of the cooperation between the two parties. This agency model would be challenged, and the cooperation would not continue. In the afternoon, Ouyang Shua and Xie Xiyun took the opportunity to have an in-depth discussion about the cooperation between Shanghai County and the Snow Rose Mercenary Group. The two parties signed a memorandum of understanding. Shanghai County and the Snow Rose Mercenary Group had become strategic partners. The Snow Rose Mercenary Group would have the priority to purchase weapons and equipment from Shanghai County. At the same time, they would enjoy a 10% discount. In return, the Snow Rose Mercenary Group would look for outstanding life profession players in Jianya County and recruit them to settle down in Shanghai County. Since both parties were still in the initial stage, there was no way to talk about further cooperation. They could only adapt to the situation. The Snow Rose Mercenary Group was the first force to receive a discount from Shanghai County. Even the members of the Shanghai Alliance and Heavenly Frost Town didn't receive such treatment. This showed Ouyang Shua's desire for talent. Of course, he couldn't rule out the possibility of Lin Jing. After all, they were a family. Moreover, the financial strength of a guild couldn't be compared to a territory. There was a reason why Ouyang Shua was willing to pay such a high price to recruit life profession players. Compared to the skilled natives, the players had many innate advantages. First, there was no qualification requirement for a player to take up a profession. When creating a character, the system would automatically give the player a certain amount of talent potential, waiting for the player to develop it. It was the same concept as the talent potential of a combat profession. The only difference was that one was used for combat, while the other was used for production. Therefore, the number of life professions among the players was much higher than the number of skilled natives. The skilled natives could only rely on luck and wait for the refugees to respawn. On the other hand, the players could directly recruit them. The efficiency of the two was naturally incomparable. Secondly, compared to the natives, it was easier for the players to break through bottleneck. It was easier for them to cultivate high-level skilled people who were above the master level. This was also related to the system's preference. In the future, life profession players would shine in this field. Of course, the players also had their flaws. Firstly, many players couldn't bear the hardships and wasted their talent. For example, a tailor couldn't be considered a qualified tailor if he didn't get pricked by needles at least a dozen times a day. Compared to blacksmiths and craftsmen, tailoring was considered a relatively easy profession. How could the pampered players in real life bear the hardships? Secondly, the players all started as apprentices, which required a long period of training. For example, Sun Xiaoye's architect profession took her 2 months of study in an architecture school to become an intermediate architect. The higher the level, the longer the time needed. This required continuous dedication and patience. Therefore, only the life profession players who had great perseverance, could bear the hardships, and could endure loneliness could become true masters in the future. Most people would be reduced to chicken ribs in the process. At 5 in the afternoon, Xie Xiyun and her aunt returned to Jianya. In the evening, Ouyang Shua held a banquet to entertain the experts at Sangha restaurant. At the banquet, Ouyang Shua announced the arrangements for the experts. All 30 experts were hired by Lianzhou College as professors. The monthly salary was 10 gold coins, which was equivalent to the salary of a director in a government department. While completing their teaching tasks, the experts could either work as consultants in the government department or set up a research institute to tackle scientific research problems according to their specialties and preferences. Agriculture experts could be hired as consultants to the Department of Agriculture to guide the Department of Agriculture to improve water facilities, guide farmers to improve their planting methods to increase crop yields, teach pest control methods to reduce crop losses, and so on. Economics experts could be hired as consultants to the Department of Finance to guide the Department of Finance to improve the tax system and formulate more targeted economic stimulus policies. Engineering experts could be hired as consultants to guide the Department of Construction to develop more advanced tools or mechanical equipment, reduce the labor intensity of the craftsmen, improve construction efficiency, and so on. Mechanics experts could be hired as consultants to guide the Department of Combat Readiness to research and develop siege weapons, improve existing ladders and fierce fire oil tanks, and so on. Metallurgy experts could be hired as consultants to guide the Department of Resource Reserve to improve the refining level of gold ores in the Wolf Mountain mine, the smelting level of various iron ores, and the upgrading of smelting furnaces. In short, these experts were a huge treasure. Although they couldn't overturn the system's restrictions on the technology tree, they could use their knowledge to fine-tune or upgrade the various industries in the territory. Of course, the prerequisite for all of this was to integrate these experts into the territory, understand the current situation of the territory, and then formulate a targeted transformation plan according to the local conditions. If agriculture, economics, engineering, machinery, and metallurgy experts were just the icing on the cake, then Ouyang Shua's core requirement was to build warships and guns that could be driven by steam engines. This plan involved many fields and required the cooperation of many experts. With the participation of Lu Mo, a firearms expert, alchemy workshops, weapons workshops, and other departments, it could only be realized. To be continued. Chapter 189. 2nd of July, 10 o'clock in the morning. Shanghai County Lord's Mansion. Ouyang Shua summoned Fan Zhongyan, Su Shuda, Old Sun, Old Li, and Sun Xiaoya for a meeting. Old Li was the old man who argued with Old Sunday. He was also the only master architect among the 30 experts. Last night, after sending off the old men, Ouyang Shua returned to the Lord's mansion and thought hard about the new position and structure of Lianzhou Academy. The original intention of establishing Lianzhou Academy was to train civil servants for the territory. Now that a large number of experts from the real world were about to join, it was inappropriate to call it an academy. In the end, Ouyang Shua decided to use the name of the new school system in the late Qing dynasty. He renamed Lianzhou Academy to Southwest University China Academy. Ouyang Shua looked around and introduced the structure of Southwest University China Academy to everyone present. Southwest University China Academy will only have 3 faculties for now. They are the Faculty of Economics, the Faculty of Physics, and the Faculty of Architecture. The former Lianzhou Academy's economics, politics, and law will be transferred to the Faculty of Economics. They will continue to bear the responsibility of training civil servants. The remaining mathematics will be transferred to the newly established Faculty of Physics. In addition, the Faculty of Economics will be set up to teach economics and auditing to provide talents for the Finance Department and the Audit Department. The Faculty of Physics, as the name suggests, is a school for science subjects. Most of the members of the expert team will be hired to teach in the Faculty of Physics. As for the Faculty of Architecture, Ouyang Shua turned to Sun Xiaoya and said, "The core members of the Falling Moon Society graduated from the Royal City Faculty of Architecture, and they specialize in different fields. Therefore, the Faculty of Architecture will be established with you as the backbone. Currently, Southwest University China Academy only had 3 faculties, but there was a possibility of establishing more in the future. Ouyang Shua's restructuring of Lianzhou Academy was not a big deal in the eyes of modern people like Old Sun and Old Li. But in the eyes of Fan Zhongyan and Su Shuda, it was earth-shattering. Fortunately, the two of them were not pedantic scholars. Coupled with Ouyang Shua's influence in the past 6 months, their way of thinking and some concepts were slowly changing, and they began to move closer to the modern way of thinking. This was exactly what Ouyang Shua wanted. After all, if he really wanted to turn these important ministers into biohumans in the future to help him manage his territory in the real world, it would undoubtedly be inappropriate for them to cling to their old ways of thinking without a modern mindset. Fan Zhongyan was the first to react. He said, "I agree with the restructuring of Lianzhou Academy." Su Shuda also expressed his agreement. Ouyang Shua nodded and said, "The position of principal of Southwest University China Hall will still be held by Shu Shu. Old Sun was the dean of the Department of Physics, and Old Li was the dean of the Department of Architecture. As for the dean of the School of Classics, Shuda, do you have a candidate in mind?" Su Shuda thought for a while and said, "Sir, I recommend Professor Su Zhe." "Mr. Su Zhe?" Ouyang Shua was a little surprised and said doubtfully, "Mr. Su Zhe is naturally the most suitable candidate. However, Mr. Su Zhe has no interest in an official career. Will he agree?" Su Shuda nodded and said, "Sir, you may not know this, but although Professor Su Zhe has no interest in an official career, he is very devoted to the teaching of Lianzhou Academy. Moreover, the dean of the School of Economics and Economics was different from the previous dean of the Lianzhou Academy. He did not need to oversee the overall situation, but was solely responsible for one area. I am confident that I can convince Professor Su Zhe to accept the appointment." "Good." Ouyang Shua's spirit was lifted. He said, "Then it's decided. The Department of Culture and Education will be in charge of the change of name, appointment of professors, and expansion of Southwest University China Hall." "Understood," Su Shuda replied. "The first phase of the Southwest University China Hall project will be expanded by at least 50 times based on the foundation of Lianzhou Academy. 1/3 of the land in the northwest area of the core area is reserved for Southwest University China Hall. This time, not only will we add classrooms, but we will also add faculty dormitories, separate cafeterias, student dormitories, auditoriums, and libraries. We will also build gardens, fields, and lakes to create a quiet and beautiful teaching environment for all students and faculty. The Department of Culture and Education will join hands with the Department of Construction and invite faculty from the Department of Architecture to complete the overall design of Southwest University China Hall and submit it to me for review." Ouyang Shua described the future blueprint of Southwest University China Hall to everyone. "Understood." Su Shuda was shocked by Ouyang Shua's blueprint and was indescribably excited. Ouyang Shua nodded and looked at Elder Li. "Elder Li, will you personally oversee the overall design of Southwest University China Hall and be the chief designer?" Elder Li laughed. "Of course. Not bad. Even an old man like me is overwhelmed by emotions." Ouyang Shua had set aside 1,000 acres of land in the core area of his territory for the construction of Southwest University China Hall. From this, one could see how much he valued education and cultivating talents. After Fan Zhongyan and Su Shuda left, Ouyang Shua turned to Elder Sun and Elder Li and said with a smile, "Elder Sun, Elder Li, I was overstepping my bounds just now. I hope you don't mind." Elder Sun waved his hand. "Ouyang, since we're going to settle in Shanhai County, of course we'll respect you. You're the Lord, so of course it's good that you respect us old folks, but the final decision is still up to you." "I've learned my lesson." Ouyang Shua cupped his hands. Elder Sun nodded. Alright, us old folks have been idling for a month. It's time to get some exercise. Don't worry, leave the physics department and architecture department to us. After saying that, Elder Sun and Elder Li stood up and left. In the end, only Sun Xiaoye and Ouyang Shuo were left in the meeting room. Ouyang Shuo had been too busy yesterday, so the two hadn't had the chance to have a proper conversation. Xiaoye, I really have to thank you this time. Without you and your grandfather, Shanghai County wouldn't have been able to recruit these talents. Ouyang Shuo sincerely said to Sun Xiaoye. Sun Xiaoye looked at Ouyang Shuo with a complicated expression. A scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at in a new light. Ouyang, you're really amazing. Wasn't that so? Before immigrating, Sun Xiaoye had always felt that Ouyang Shuo was too secretive. He didn't even dare to tell her his game ID. When the truth was revealed, she didn't expect that Ouyang Shuo was really a big fish, a big shark. Sun Xiaoye had watched Ouyang Shuo calmly deal with government affairs the whole time. He was full of energy, and he skillfully controlled a famous historical figure like Fan Zhongyan. She really couldn't relate him to that nerd in reality. Ouyang Shuo shook his head. Xiaoye, don't make fun of me. I'm really happy that you're here. You don't know how much that girl Bing misses you. At the mention of Bing Sun Xiaoye was startled. She said with a smile, that girl has been spoiled by you. She's like a little princess in Shanghai County. Everyone spoils her, and she even has maids to serve her. How would she remember her sister? Ouyang Shuo smiled bitterly. You're jealous. You still don't know Bing That child is affectionate, and there aren't many people who are truly close to her. Your sister Xiaoye is definitely one of them. Ouyang Shuo changed his tone and continued, You don't know, but last night, that girl even begged me to invite you to live in the Lord's mansion. I reprimanded her, so you can see how much she depends on you. Sun Xiaoye naturally lived in the official residence district with her grandfather and family. In reality, they had to share a house because of the situation. But now that they were in the game, she naturally had no reason to live in the Lord's mansion. Whoever lived in the Lord's mansion was Ouyang Shuo's family. Although there was a small ambiguity or misunderstanding between the two, they could only be considered good friends. Oh right. Ouyang Shuo remembered. You're all top graduates of the Royal City Architecture School, so you can't just hole up in the Southwest University China Hall. The construction division is currently renovating the territory, and there are many areas that need your help. Let me know a little about those friends of yours. They're all talented people. As far as I know, Shanghai County's construction is almost done. Is there anything else that we can do? Ouyang Shuo shook his head. Why not? It looks good on the surface, but it's still far from done. Not to mention the construction of the Southwest University China Hall, whether it's the municipal drainage system, bridges, or sluices, they've all been delayed due to the lack of professional guidance. In this regard, you guys are the real experts. I understand. Sun Xiaoye suddenly understood. You want to modernize the county? Smart. Ouyang Shuo nodded approvingly. During this time, you guys can observe Shanghai County and give your suggestions. As long as it's reasonable, I'll support it unconditionally. No problem. Sun Xiaoye agreed. Also, after you settle down, as the guild leader, you have to encourage the members of the Falling Moon Society to do more guild quests and strive to upgrade the guild token to the silver level as soon as possible. The Falling Moon Society is the only guild officially recognized by Shanghai County. I'm guessing that 1,000 members won't be enough in the future. Sun Xiaoye grinned. So, as the guild leader, I still have a lot to do? Of course. Ouyang Shuo laughed. You're the future leader of Shanghai County. Alright, I'll urge everyone to do the quests. Moreover, upgrading the guild can increase the guild's characteristics, which is beneficial to everyone. I don't think anyone will reject it. Sun Xiaoye promised. Ouyang Shuo nodded in agreement. After Sun Xiaoye left, Ouyang Shuo followed her out of the meeting hall and out of the mansion. Since the system update, the two buildings on both sides of the square in front of the mansion had changed. Next to the teleportation portal on the east side stood a stone hall. The hall was 8 meters tall and square, like a giant stone box. Although it was a newly built building, the stone walls were covered in moss. It looked gloomy, as though no one was allowed to enter. That was the famous Reincarnation Hall. As long as a player lived in Shanghai County, they would be reincarnated in this hall after death. The high-class market on the west side had also changed greatly. The original market was a combination of a wooden hut and a small square. Now it had become a giant building. It was equivalent to the small square being absorbed into the building. The interior of the building was not much different from the wooden hut from before. Ouyang Shua opened the super auction platform and searched for authentic manuals. Just as Ouyang Shua expected, the price of a genuine gold rank secret manual had already been raised to 400 gold coins, and it was still rising non-stop. Ouyang Shua remembered that at the peak of his previous life, an authentic gold-level manual had been raised to 800 gold coins. That was something that happened in Gaia's second year. Ouyang Shua naturally wouldn't wait until then. From his point of view, he could sell it when it rose to 700 gold coins. To be continued. Chapter 190. July 2nd, 3 in the afternoon. Physician Song followed the gatekeeper into the Lord's mansion, feeling quite emotional. He could be considered an old man in Shanghai County. He came to Shanghai Village on the second day it was established and was the first senior talent of Shanghai Village. Even the current director of finance, Cui Yingyu, had been taken care of by him. After the apprentice incident, Dr. Song finally came around. He put down his pride and stayed in the medical center, treating patients and teaching apprentices at the same time. In the past 6 months, he had nurtured a total of 50 apprentice physicians, 20 junior physicians, and 5 intermediate physicians for Shanghai County. He had worked hard and made great contributions. When he first came to Shanghai Village, he was a guest of honor at the Lord's mansion. Now, with the continuous upgrading of the territory, the Lord's mansion was heavily guarded, and the threshold was getting higher. Not everyone could enter. In the past, whenever the Lord looked for him, he would personally go to the clinic. Now, it was already a great honor for him to send a doorman to the clinic to invite him. In just half a year, Dr. Song had a feeling that things have changed. Seeing Physician Song behind the gatekeeper, the clerk, Bai Nanpu, quickly got up and said with a smile, "Elder Song, the Lord is waiting for you in the reception room. Please follow me." Before entering the reception room, they could hear the sound of conversation and laughter coming from inside. Physician Song looked puzzled and asked, "Mr. Bai, is the Lord receiving a guest?" Bai Nanpu smiled and said, "Yes, the one in the reception room is a doctor who just arrived yesterday, Elder Qian. Rest assured, the Lord has invited you here for a good thing." Physician Song nodded and did not say anything. Entering the reception room, they saw the Lord sitting at the head of the table, and a white-haired old man sitting below him. The two of them were in a deep conversation. "Lord, Elder Song is here," Bai Nanpu said. Ouyang Shua turned and saw Physician Song. He smiled and said, "Elder Song, please sit." Physician Song cupped his fists and sat down on the other side. Ouyang Shua naturally did not feel as emotional as Physician Song. He said directly, "Elder Song, let me introduce you. This is the doctor I invited, Elder Qian." Elder Qian was also one of the 30 members of the expert group. In reality, he was a top surgeon. Before Mr. Song arrived, Ouyang Shua asked Mr. Qian about the difference between TCM and Western medicine with great interest. According to old Qian's introduction, TCM emphasized on nurturing, which was to actively prevent diseases and treat chronic diseases. Western medicine emphasized the word cure, which was passive prevention of diseases. It was good at epidemic prevention, diagnosis, surgery, and rescue. The two complemented each other and could coexist, but it was difficult to unify them. Old Qian admitted that he had admired TCM for a long time, and he was even more excited when he heard that there was a senior doctor in Shanhai County. Therefore, when he heard that Ouyang Shuo was preparing to set up the official doctor's office, he took the initiative to relinquish his position and willingly became the deputy. In fact, Elder Qian was more useful to Ouyang Shuo. This was because Elder Qian could train military doctors for the territory and assign them to the various battalions, reducing the casualty rate of soldiers. After the two exchanged greetings, Ouyang Shuo continued, "I've mentioned to you about the establishment of the official clinic a long time ago. Now, Old Song had students all over the world, and with Old Qian joining, the time was ripe. I have decided to officially establish the official hospital department, with Elder Song as the director and Elder Qian as the deputy director. The government clinic had an official background, but it did not have any administrative rank or power. It was responsible for its own profits and losses. It was mainly responsible for training doctors and military doctors for the territory, and at the same time, it also took care of the important task of treating patients and saving lives. The construction department would build an official office for the government clinic in the residential area for free, and the territory's herb garden could also give priority to the government clinic with medicinal materials. Ouyang Shuo's position on the government clinic was similar to a modern institution. Dr. Song got his long-cherished wish. He stood up excitedly, bowed to Ouyang Shuo, and said, "Thank you for your trust, Your Excellency. I won't let you down." Ouyang Shuo didn't dare to neglect him. He stood up and helped him up, saying, "Thank you, Old Song." After the greetings, Old Song and Old Qian left hand in hand to discuss the specific matters of the establishment of the government clinic. After seeing off the two elders, Ouyang Shuo had time to open the letter he had just received at noon and read it carefully. This letter was written by Song Jia. Song Jia replied in the letter that her brother had already forwarded the letter to her grandfather. The Song Enterprise naturally had mixed feelings about Ouyang Shuo's identity being exposed. On the one hand, they were glad that they didn't rush to unite with the Yuan family through marriage, otherwise they would have missed such a powerful ally as Shanhai County. On the other hand, they were worried that the utilitarian side of the Song Enterprise had been undoubtedly revealed in front of Ouyang Shuo. They were afraid that it would be difficult for Ouyang Shuo to treat them sincerely. It could be seen from Ouyang Shuo's unwillingness to include the Heavenly Frost Town in the Shanhai Alliance. For this reason, the Song Enterprise discussed it for a whole day before they came to a conclusion. The Song Enterprise had a large business, and its wealth was distributed among the members of the family. When the achievement points were calculated, Song Jia's grandfather had the highest authority, with level C authority. In addition, there were 5 people with level D authority, including Song Jia's father and brother Song Wan. In order to realize the Song Enterprise's resurgence on the Hope Planet, the Song Enterprise decided that all the elders would retreat behind the scenes and only provide consulting and advice. They would no longer participate in the specific decision-making of the Heavenly Frost Town. Song Wan was officially established as the sole heir of the Song Enterprise, and he was fully responsible for the management of the Heavenly Frost Town. Therefore, the cooperation between the Heavenly Frost Town and Shanhai County would be managed by Song Wan. In the letter, Song Jia mentioned that her brother Song Wan was quite like her father, not as sophisticated as her grandfather. Because her parents had just entered the game and were not used to it yet, Song Jia still needed to stay in the Heavenly Frost Town for a while. When things settled down, she would go to Shanhai County to meet Ouyang Shuo. Ouyang Shuo put down the letter and clicked on the control panel of the territory. Sure enough, he saw the alliance request from Song Wan. Ouyang Shuo clicked yes without hesitation. In the next 2 weeks, the game was quiet. All the territories and the top 10 guilds were digesting the aftermath of the interstellar migration and the system update, making internal adjustments and integration. The only sensational news was that Xiongba's Bawang town became the 8th territory in China to be promoted to a first-class county. There were only 2 places left in the top 10 of the territory ranking. In the past 2 weeks, Shanghai County was also busy. The busiest was the construction department. In addition to the renewal of the territory, they also had to start the construction of the Southwest University China Hall approved by Ouyang Shu. In addition, there were a series of municipal projects. First of all, they had to plan and upgrade the streets in the city. According to the standards set by Ouyang Shu, the first-class main road, which was the 2 main roads on the central axis, was 150 meters wide. The second-class main road, which was the main road on the central axis of each district, was 100 meters wide. The third-class main road, which was the branch road on the central axis of each district, was 60 meters wide. The fourth-class main road, which was the street that divided the districts, was 40 meters wide. The fifth-class main road, which was the street that divided the districts, was 20 to 25 meters wide. The road surface of each street was high in the middle and low on both sides. Drainage ditches about 25 meters wide were built on both sides and planted with all kinds of trees that were dug out from the wild. The drainage openings were all led to the inner city river, which was then discharged to the canyon and finally into the North Sea. All the roads were made of the same material. They were compacted with soil and sand. To prevent dust, they were covered with fine sand and finally a layer of bluestone. Shanghai County had no shortage of sand or stone materials. The sand used to build the roads came from the sea in Beihai County. It was very easy to dig and transport. This project was led by Drawing Board, who was the chief designer. Next was the construction of bridges and sluices. This was because the inner city river passed through the second city wall on the north and east side. In order to not leave any blind spots in the city defense, these 2 places were designed with sluices. The sluices were made of iron bars that were welded with tin to form a huge hollowed-out iron net. This ensured the flow of water and effectively prevented enemies from sneaking into the city through the inner city river. 5 stone arch bridges were designed on the inner city river. The suspension bridge at the north gate of the core area was removed and replaced with a wooden gate. In front of the north gate, 3 stone arch bridges were designed. 1 was the main bridge and 2 were the secondary bridges. They led to the main gate and 2 side gates respectively. The suspension bridge was removed because Ouyang Shu was confident that no force could attack the core area of Shanghai County. In addition, another stone arch bridge was built in the middle of the inner city river in the residential area and the eastern district to facilitate the passage of the people on both sides of the inner city river. Ouyang Shu planned to build a bridge at the Friendship River, Qiushui River, and the canyon. This would connect Shanghai County, Qiushui County, and Yi County into one. This project was led by Wu Qi, who was the chief designer. This series of projects was just the beginning. It would take at least 2 to 3 months to complete all of them. The preliminary budget alone was more than 8,000 gold coins. The Falling Moon Society was known as the Three Male God. Of course, this was a title given by them and no one acknowledged it. The last one, 9-Line, also carried a heavy responsibility. 9-Line led a team of more than 100 people to map out the entire Shanghai County. They marked the specific coordinates of the settlements, the distribution of various resources, and the river channels. This work was also time-consuming and could not be completed in a short period of time. Other than the construction division, the agriculture division was not having it easy either. The first season of rice in Yue County and Yu County had already been harvested. A total of 13.2 million units of rice were harvested, which was similar to Ouyang Shua's previous estimation. Yue County and Yu County had collected a total of 440,000 units of public grain based on 30% tax. This batch of public grain was directly allocated to them by Ouyang Shu as military grain. There was no need to hand it over to the headquarters. Due to the lack of funds, the Resource Division did not immediately start to purchase the grain. They had to wait until the end of the month when they had sufficient funds. Then, the Resource Division would start to purchase the grain. Other than keeping the rations, the farmers would sell the rest to the Resource Division at the price of 10 copper coins per unit. The Resource Division would then sell it to the people at the price of 11 copper coins per unit. The price difference was mainly used to offset the storage costs and sales costs of the Resource Division. They were not really making money from the people. To be continued. Chapter 191. The Snow Rose Mercenary Group had already recommended the first batch of life profession players to Shanghai County. There were 500 players in this batch. Including their families, there were 2,400 players. They were all accepted into the Falling Moon Society and arranged to live in the residential area. Their treatment was the same as the ordinary members of the Falling Moon Society. As a result, the Falling Moon Society had 850 members, which was close to the limit of 1,000 members. In desperation, Ouyang Shua could only urge Sun Xiaoye to upgrade the guild token as soon as possible and expand the upper limit of the guild members. At the same time, he delayed the progress of accepting players and temporarily let the Snow Rose Mercenary Group take care of them. The members of the Falling Moon Society were from all walks of life, but they were mostly intermediate professions. Some were even beginner professions. There were very few advanced professions. Like the skilled natives, they were arranged to work in large workshops, shops, or construction sites. Their salary was the same as that of the natives. Of course, Ouyang Shua would not open the 4 major workshops in the Eastern District to them before he confirmed the loyalty of the players. This way, the players could earn money and improve their skill levels. Especially with the support of the strong territorial characteristics of Shanghai County, the effect was even more obvious. In the future, in addition to assets, the achievements of the players in their own fields would also be a very important reference. For life profession players, becoming a god was their ultimate goal. Before Ouyang Shua's rebirth, there had not been a single god profession player in the entire China region. In the context of the global online world, the players could not go offline for a long time. It could be said that they were not much different from the natives in the game. Naturally, Ouyang Shua had no reason to treat them differently. Compared to the natives, the players' sense of discipline was worse. Some players could not adapt to their roles and looked down on the native. There had even been fights. Some players were lazy and slack off and were complained to the business department by the workshop owners or shopkeepers. Ouyang Shua's attitude towards such incidents was also very firm. He would hand them over to the disciplinary bureau to handle. If the circumstances were serious, they would be thrown into prison without any consideration. Once the players settled in the territory, they had to abide by the rules of the territory. Because the Lord had enough means to punish them, these players had no ability to escape the territory. Even if they committed suicide, they would be reincarnated in the territory's reincarnation hall. Therefore, as long as Ouyang Shua did not release them, the players would live and die as the residents of the territory. Unless the territory of the players was occupied, the players would not be able to regain their freedom. Apart from that, there were other changes in Shanghai County. Under Elder Sun's proposal, the advanced shipyard had been transferred to the Beihai port. Old Sun also officially became the chief consultant of the shipyard, responsible for the improvement and research of warships. According to Elder Sun, the canyon was too narrow and not deep enough to accommodate the passage of large warship. It was also impossible to build a large dock, so it was better to move it to the North Sea port and solve the problem once and for all. Ouyang Shua did not object. He also instructed the construction department of the construction of Mountain Town. In addition, Ouyang Shua also instructed the construction department to take some time to expand Shanghai County's dock. Shanghai Town, of County. of goods wood of Yang City. Were high county and in town. Town in town. The most. Yang town of county. Of town. The Institute of Country. The Institute. The Wu Institute. The core members of the Research Institute consisted of the ship specialist, Elder Sun, the metallurgist, Elder Liu, the mobility specialist, Elder Zhou, the mechanics specialist, Elder Bian, the weapons specialist, Liu Mo, the master blacksmith, Wang Zhuan, and the high-level metallurgist, Magnus. There were a total of 7 people. The mission of the No. 7 Research Institute was undoubtedly to conduct research on warships driven by steam engines, as well as guns and cannons. Ouyang Shua's goal was to reach the level of England's science and technology in the late Qing dynasty. Ouyang Shua did not expect the 7th Research Institute to produce results immediately, because it involved a lot of basic research, including materials, machine tools, gunpowder, and so on. It was very complicated. It was normal for there to be no obvious progress in 2 to 3 years. Ouyang Shua hoped that the 7th Research Institute could show its power in the later stages of the game. On the 20th of July, Ouyang Shua brought Guo Hongliang and Shi Wansui to the northern barracks. Ouyang Shua sat in the main seat of honor in the barracks meeting hall. He looked around and said in a deep voice, "Recently, the nomadic tribes have been like a pool of stagnant water. The turmoil caused by the daybreak operation has dissipated. Monk and Dari Achi, those 2 old foxes, are really able to hold it in. The most direct effect is that we have a severe shortage of cyan beetle horses. Up until now, we have only managed to gather enough mounts for the 1st Battalion of the vanguard. At this speed, how are we going to develop cavalry?" The general of the northern barracks, the commander of the 1st Battalion of the vanguard, Lin Yi, wasn't very satisfied with this. "Sir, since the trade route is not feasible, then we can only solve the problem through war." I agree with General Lin's view. The problem is how to find a suitable entry point. If we wipe out 1 or 2 small tribes like last time, it might not be of any use. To wipe out a mid-sized tribe and make sure no one escapes the net, with our current army, I'm afraid it will be difficult. Guo Hongliang said. Lin Yi smiled faintly and turned to Ouyang Shua. "Sir, I have an idea." "Oh!" Ouyang Shua's spirit shook. He knew that Lin Yi had been in the northern barracks for a long time and had a deeper understanding of the nomadic tribes than Guo Hongliang. It seemed that how to solve the problem Guo Hongliang mentioned was already within this general's calculations. For Lin Yi to speak now, he must have a certain degree of confidence. "This is what I think. If we want to break the balance of power between the nomadic tribes, the key lies in the Sky Order tribe. The peace of the grasslands is all because of the Sky Order tribe's superior strength and deterrence. Just like last time, even if they sensed that someone was secretly provoking the Sky Order tribe, a mid-sized tribe like the Sky Order tribe still didn't dare to act rashly. The root of the problem is that the difference in strength between the 2 sides is too big. The Sky Order tribe has 12,000 warriors. On the other hand, the Sky Order tribe only has 1,000. With a difference of more than 10 times, no idiot would think of challenging the Sky Order tribe's royal power. Thus, this general thinks that since the mid-sized tribe is powerless, then why don't we help them?" Ouyang Shua's interest grew. He vaguely sensed Lin Yi's intentions and was shocked by this general's bold and unconstrained thinking. He said hurriedly, "Tell me more details." Seeing that the general was so interested, Lin Yi became more confident. He continued, "The Sky Order tribe has an East and West division. Each division has 5,000 people, and they are responsible for guarding the east and west sides of the tribe. If we can penetrate deep into the grasslands and defeat one of them, then the balance of power in the grasslands will be broken. It can be foreseen that a chaotic battle for dominance of the grasslands will be unavoidable." "Why do you say so?" "Think about it, sir. If the Sky Order tribe loses one of their arms, they will no longer be able to intimidate the other mid-sized tribes. At that time, although those mid-sized tribes won't dare to make a move against the Sky Order tribe, they will definitely not be willing to submit to the Sky Order tribe's tyrannical power. The best way is to ignore the Sky Order tribe's warning and brazenly swallow up the surrounding small tribes to strengthen themselves. With everyone in danger, a merger war is unavoidable. And this time is the time when the Friendship County Bazaar truly opens. In order to expand their strength, they are not stingy with using green buckskin horses to exchange for all kinds of resources with us. Lin Yi explained. Clap, clap, clap. Ouyang Shua took the lead to clap and said with a smile, bold thinking and far-reaching planning. General Lin, after 3 days, you really have to be looked at in a new light. Lin Yi said excitedly, you flatter me, sir. Ouyang Shua's expression turned serious as he said in a low voice, then, let me ask you, how many riders do we need to be confident in defeating the Sky Order tribe's army? They have a whole 5,000 elite riders. Since they were going to fight deep into the grasslands, naturally, only riders could do it. And in terms of individual combat ability, the normal riders of Shanghai County couldn't compare to the enemy because the enemy would all be equipped with green buckskin horses. Besides which grassland warrior wasn't skilled in horse archery, unlike the riders of Shanghai County, who only learned it halfway. Lin Yi smiled confidently, sir, 2,000 riders are enough. There is no joking in the army. 2,000 riders can defeat the enemy? Ouyang Shua didn't dare believe it. Of course, it won't be enough with just the riders. In this, I will need your cooperation, sir. Lin Yi told Ouyang Shua the detailed strategy he had formulated. After listening to it, Ouyang Shua's heart relaxed. He was already 70 to 80% convinced. Although there was a certain amount of risk involved, one couldn't have complete confidence in everything if they wanted to achieve hegemony. At the critical moment, they had to give it their all. Ouyang Shua didn't hesitate anymore. He followed Lin Yi's plan and announced the new arrangements for expanding the army. Liao Kai. Here. Liao Kai stepped out. I order you to pick 500 men from the reserve and form the Pool Water Cavalry Battalion. They will be stationed in the Pool Water Military Camp. I will give you 10 days. After 10 days, I want to see a fully formed cavalry battalion. Thank you for your recommendation, sir. I will not let you down. Liao Kai's face was filled with excitement. The reason why Ouyang Shua placed the newly formed cavalry battalion in Pool Water County was because after Pool Water County was promoted to a first-class county, they only had one city defense battalion. It seemed a little weak. Secondly, he didn't want to station too many troops in the North Military Camp. He didn't want to put too much pressure on Tianfeng tribe. As such, according to Lin Yi's plan, the 2,000 riders were already arranged. They were 2 cavalry battalions in the North Military Camp, 1 cavalry battalion in the West Military Camp, and the newly formed cavalry battalion in Pool Water County. To be continued. Chapter 192. Lin Yi's plan, codenamed Wildfire, meant to ignite the flames of war in the grasslands. The success or failure of Operation Wildfire was related to the future policy orientation of Shanghai County towards the nomadic tribes, as well as the progress of the construction of the Shanghai County Cavalry. Its importance was self-evident. The military office would work with Lin Yi to come up with a more detailed plan to ensure that nothing went wrong. Ouyang Shua had just returned from Yi County and was once again immersed in government affairs. On the 20th of July, the Cavalry Battalion of Pool Water County was established. Liao Kai was appointed as the battalion commander of the Cavalry Battalion. The fee for the Cavalry Battalion's class change was naturally deducted from the first half of July's income. 3 days ago, Ouyang Shua and the Dali's Chui clan merchant group had completed their first transaction on the super trading platform. The Northern Twilight Salt Works produced a total of 2.5 million units of salt in half a month. According to the market price of 20 copper coins per unit, the Chui merchant group had to pay 5,000 gold coins. After deducting 10% of the transaction tax, Ouyang Shuo actually received 4,500 gold coins. After deducting the operating costs of the Northern Twilight Saltworks, he was left with 4,100 gold coins. System: after the transaction tax is halved, the North Twilight Salt Fields can save 1,000 gold coins in taxes every month. As for the Wolf Mountain Mine, they would still hand over 4,000 gold coins. The mineral experts in the expert group had already entered the Wolf Mountain Mine and began to instruct the Wolf Mountain Mine on how to mine, process, and refine gold ores in a more scientific and reasonable manner. According to preliminary estimates, the output of the Wolf Mountain Mine in August would increase by at least 10%. The technical guidance of a mineral expert could increase the income of Shanhai County by at least 1 gold coin every month. This was the value of the team of experts. They could improve the territory in all aspects. Of the 8,100 gold coins from the first half of the month, after deducting the 750 gold coins from the cavalry battalion and the 4,400 gold coins from the Bank of the Four Seas, he was left with 2,950 gold coins. The cost of sending a player to the territory through the teleportation circle was extremely high and extravagant. On average, a life profession player would have to spend 5 gold coins in teleportation fees. Ouyang Shuo had yet to calculate the cost of providing a normal courtyard for every player. For example, when Di Chun and the others recruited players to settle in their territory, they basically chose new players and arranged for them to descend directly into the territory. Only these great forces had the strength to mobilize such a huge amount of manpower in the real world. After the interstellar migration, they would not have such convenience. They could only obediently pay the teleportation fee like Ouyang Shuo. This was undoubtedly another heavy burden for Di Chen and the others. According to what Feng Qiuhuang had revealed, before the migration, the various factions had gathered in their territories and placed a large number of new players in order to avoid the teleportation fees. As for the exact number, it was unknown. The remaining 2,950 gold coins from the first half of the month weren't kept hot in Ouyang Shuo's hands, and he used these funds to purchase 2,950,000 units of grain through the Chui clan merchant group. In this way, Shanhai County would not have to worry about food in the second half of the year. The price Ouyang Shuo had to pay was that he had to spend 9,000 gold coins just to purchase food. Ouyang Shuo didn't dare to imagine what kind of price the other territories would have to pay for food after the price of food increased. One had to know that the other territories did not have Shanhai County's 40,000 acres of fertile farmland, so they needed to purchase more food. The only comforting thing was that the other territories did not have such a large population base like Shanhai County, nor did they have such a terrifying spawn rate of refugees. If he had sufficient funds, Ouyang Shuo would even consider whether he should engage in a shady business of reselling food. While the price of food hasn't risen yet, I'll buy a batch and sell them after the price rises. Ouyang Shuo had already informed the members of the Shanhai Alliance, including Songwon, about his prediction of the grain market. As for whether or not they had the funds to stock up in advance, Ouyang Shuo could not help them. No matter how big Shanhai County was, it did not have enough funds to support 5 or 6 territories at the same time. Moreover, they were just allies, and Ouyang Shuo was not a philanthropist. No matter which territory it was, if they wanted to borrow money from Shanhai County, they would have to allow the Bank of the Four Seas to set up a branch in their territory. As for Mulan Town, Ouyang Shuo was prepared to wait until the end of the month. After the profits of the second half of July were collected, he would add a reserve fund to the Bank of the Four Seas branch in Mulan Town. As for the Resource Division's purchase of grain, it had already been settled. According to Yingyu, she wanted to take out a portion of the funds she had deposited in the Bank of the Four Seas and use it to purchase surplus grain from the farmers. The surplus grain in the farmers' hands did not need to be purchased in one go. They could purchase a portion every month, and after they were sold, they would purchase another batch, and the cycle would repeat. Otherwise, purchasing a batch of grain in one go would require tens of thousands of gold coins, which was simply a waste of funds. On average, a farmer farmed 10 mu of land. Based on the yield of 350 units per mu, that was 3,500 units of grain. If they handed over 117 units of grain and kept half a year's worth of rations, they could sell 3,200 units of grain, making a profit of 3 gold coins and 20 silver coins. After deducting the business tax from selling the grain, the actual profit was 3 gold coins and 10 silver coins. With 2 seasons a year, the annual income was 6 gold coins and 20 silver coins. After deducting the cost, the final profit was about 5 gold coins. If the farmers were more diligent and raised chickens, ducks, geese, and other poultry, or even a pig, they could make a profit of dozens of silver coins a year to subsidize their family. Therefore, in reality, the farmer's income was not low. It was almost the annual salary of an ordinary rank 5 soldier. The only difference was that the soldier's food and shelter were covered, and there was still room for improvement in the army's pay. The reason for this was that the farmers had enough arable land, and it was calculated according to the fertile farmland. Secondly, the taxes set by Shanghai County were already the lowest in history. Thirdly, in the purchase of grain, Ouyang Shua did not buy low and sell high to squeeze the farmers. All these factors contributed to the high income of Shanghai County's farmers. In the past month and a half, Mulan Town had developed rapidly with the support of the Bank of the Four Seas. Using the loan from the Bank of the Four Seas, Mu Guiying successfully established the Mulan Town's City Defense Battalion. With the City Defense Battalion, Mu Guiying went around to exterminate the bandit. Exterminating bandits not only trained the troops and eliminated the hidden dangers of the territory, but it also brought a steady stream of people, resources, and funds to Mulan Town, greatly improving the situation of the town. In addition, Mulan Town had also built a stone wall, greatly increasing its defense. The privatization of the territory had also been completed, and it was no longer a half-finished product. The private economy of the territory had begun to sprout, slowly accumulating potential, waiting for the big explosion in the future. Mulan Town's current development momentum was almost a replica of Shanghai Town's. A week ago, Mulan Town had successfully been promoted to a rank 3 town. After the promotion, Mulan Town's miners unexpectedly discovered a large silver mine in the territory, which was another source of wealth. Although the silver mine could not compare to the gold mine, if they went all out to mine it, they could at least earn 200 gold coins every month. Now, the biggest obstacle to Mulan Town's advancement was Mu Lanyue's noble title. In the Battle of Zhuolu, Mu Lanyue had obtained 2,500 merit points, raising her noble title from a third-rank viscount to a first-rank viscount. In addition to the bandits she had exterminated during this period, Mu Lanyue's merit points had reached 5,000. However, she was still 1,400 merit points short of becoming a third-rank viscount. Chapter 193. Night of the 24th of July. The vanguard battalion quietly withdrew from the northern barracks, and the 2 battalions of the mixed brigade followed suit. The next morning, the 2 battalions of the mixed brigade would go through routine drills in the northern barracks to confuse the Sky Abundant tribe. The scouts of the Sky Abundant tribe couldn't get close to the barracks and couldn't find them at all. The soldiers training in the barracks had been secretly changed. The 1st Battalion of the Vanguard Battalion left the cyan beetle horses and radiant armor in the northern barracks and changed into the spare equipment and mounts. The 4 cavalry battalions all wore the clothes of roving bandit. These clothes were all contributed by the captured bandits during the siege of the city. That's right, for this attack, they were dressed as roving bandit. Because they had to pass through the grasslands and enter the depths of the basin, in order to reduce the risk of exposure, The 4 battalions would split into 4 groups and follow different routes towards the western barracks of the Sky Abundant tribe. The coordination and communication between the battalions would be done by spies from the intelligence department through Hummingbird. At the same time, the 5 companies of each battalion would split up, with each company 2 kilometers apart. The western barracks were about 160 kilometers away from the Friendship River. As a result, it would take 3 days just to get there, and this was under the premise that everything went smoothly and there were no accidents. Because it was in the grasslands, there were no hills or forests. There was no place to hide during the day at all. As a result, the cavalry didn't use the nocturnal method of marching. Instead, they marched normally. Along the way, if they met any lone nomads, they would all be killed. Lei Sun from the intelligence department led the second group of spies and had already done a lot of preparation work. The 4 routes chosen by the intelligence department all went around the nomadic tribe's barrack. Ouyang Shuo went with the army, and his position was between the 2nd and 3rd companies of the 1st Battalion of the Vanguard Battalion. Following beside him and protecting him was the Lord's personal guard that had just been formed not long ago. As for Lin Yi, he led the 1st company and explored the path ahead. The 25th, 5 in the morning, the sky just brightened. 2,000 soldiers successfully crossed the Friendship River with the help of the North Sea Fleet under the morning light. After that, the 4 battalions would go their separate ways until they reached their final destination. On the first day, because they passed through the territory of the exterminated Tianlian tribe, everything went smoothly. Although this area had been taken over by the Sky Rich tribe, there were not many herdsmen stationed here. The Sky Abundant tribe only used this area as a pasture. Therefore, on this day, the overall speed of the troops was faster. Coupled with the fact that there were no infantry dragging them down, they had traveled more than 60 kilometers. At 7 o'clock in the evening, the scattered platoons regrouped and rested on the spot. The military tents and ration pills, the 2 logistics weapons, began to display their power again. When they set off in the morning, every soldier took an army pill and did not need to eat during the day. There was no need to light a fire to cook at night, which minimized the risk of exposure. As for drinking water, he had already prepared enough water in his backpack for 3 days. Apart from that, Ouyang Shuo also had a batch of drinking water in his storage pouch. Tomorrow, the troops would have to pass through the territory of a medium-sized tribe, and the danger level would increase significantly. At 5 o'clock in the morning the next day, all the platoons set off one by one, keeping a distance of 2 kilometers between them. They wanted to take advantage of the fact that there were fewer people in the early hours of the morning to cover more of the distance. At noon, Ouyang Shuo rode Black Whirlwind and hurried on with his personal guards. At this moment, a group of about 7 or 8 herdsmen appeared in front of them. They were herding a flock of sheep and seemed to be herding them. "Sir!" Wang Feng, the captain of the personal guards, immediately rushed to Ouyang Shuo's side. Ouyang Shuo naturally understood Wang Feng's meaning and nodded. Wang Feng understood and made a gesture to the back. Thus, half of the personal guards immediately left the platoon and pounced on the herdsmen like a pack of hungry wolves. When the herdsmen saw the personal guards pouncing on them, they thought that they had encountered bandits and immediately fled in panic. The horses that ordinary herdsmen rode were naturally not green beetle horses. Green beetle horses were also considered a rare breed in nomadic tribes. They were not so common that even herdsmen could ride them. The personal guards' attack was very strategic. They did not directly pounce on the herdsmen, but first circled around to form an encirclement around the herdsmen to prevent them from escaping. The herdsmen who were surrounded were panic-stricken. They were mumbling something that was probably begging for mercy. As they mumbled, they kept pointing at the flock of sheep not far away. What they meant was that they could take the flock of sheep away, and they begged the heroes to spare their lives. Unfortunately, the people they encountered were not bandits who wanted to rob them, but the Shanghai County's official army. Which member of the personal guards had not experienced the baptism of blood and fire? They had long cultivated a heart of stone. All of them were expressionless as they rode on horseback and nocked their arrows. With just a volley of arrows, all the herdsmen fell off their horses. According to Ouyang Shua's original intention, he naturally did not want to hurt the innocent, especially the civilians. However, this operation was too important, and no accidents could be allowed to happen. His hands were already stained with blood. The herdsmen looked at the sharp arrows stuck in their chests with shock on their faces. They could not understand why these bandits were not like what the rumors said, that they would rob the herdsmen and not kill them. They were not willing to let them live at all, even if they were captured and taken to the bandit camp as prisoners. The personal guards did not care about the sheep that fled in all directions. Instead, they rode to the herdsmen's corpses, pulled out their tang knives, and stabbed each corpse to ensure that nothing went wrong. After that, the personal guards took out the shovels that they had prepared in advance from their backpacks and dug a large pit on the spot. They buried all the herdsmen's corpses and covered them with a layer of weeds to make a simple camouflage. At night, the relatives of the herdsmen found out that they had gone missing and did not return home. Coupled with the time they spent outside to search, even if they could successfully find a place to bury the corpses, it would probably take 1 or 2 days. Even so, it was only determined to be an attack by bandit. It could not attract the attention of the tribe's higher-ups at all. This was just a small interlude on the march. Similar things happened from time to time on the march of the 4 cavalry battalions. This set of handling methods was also drafted in advance by the military office and explained in detail to every soldier. This was the value of the military office. They were responsible for formulating very detailed battle plans, and all kinds of small details were taken into consideration as much as possible. At night, the group stopped again. Tomorrow, they would enter the territory of the Tianji tribe. The camp in the west of the town was located at the western border of the Tianji tribe. It was a full 50 kilometers away from the tent next to the Blessed Lake. After entering the Tianji tribe, they could clearly feel that there were more herdsmen. Occasionally, they would also encounter the soldiers patrolling the border in the west of the town. At this time, they would try to avoid them as much as possible. If they really could not avoid them, they could only kill them. However, this way, when the people in the west of the town were doing a head count at night, they would definitely find that some people were missing, and this would raise the alarm. However, this could not be helped. It was not easy to sneak into the hinterland of the other party, especially with a large army. At 3:00 in the afternoon, the various units stopped 10 kilometers away from the camp in the west of the town. If they continued to advance, they would enter the core area of the town in the west. Barging in like this during the day was tantamount to seeking death. In order to hide their tracks, the platoons dispersed again and hid in the herdsmen's homes. As for the original owners of the herdsmen's homes, one could imagine what happened to them. The troops of 2,000 people were like a giant beast, secretly lurking outside the camp in the west of the town, eyeing it covetously. In the evening, after the centurion in the west of the town did a routine head count, he found that some of the soldiers patrolling the border did not return to the camp on time. This situation was immediately reported to the Chiliarch, who then reported it to the commander-in-chief of the town, Rakshan. After listening to the Chiliarch's report, Rakshan frowned and asked, "Have you sent anyone to investigate?" In reply to the general, "I have already sent a 100-man team to the border to investigate. I feel that something is amiss, so I specially rushed here to report to the general." The Chiliarch did not dare to be negligent. The west of the town had not experienced any battles for many years, so it was rare for soldiers to go missing. Thinking of the Khan's previous request, Rakshan naturally did not dare to let his guard down. Pass down the order, the entire camp is to be on alert tonight, and increase the intensity of the sentry patrols. Rakshan decided to be careful. For some reason, Rakshan had been feeling a little uneasy these past 2 days. It was as if he was being watched by a ferocious beast, but he could not see any trace of the beast. This made Rakshan very uneasy, and the disappearance of the soldiers today further exacerbated this feeling of unease. However, in front of his subordinates, Rakshan was as calm as ever. Yes. 10 kilometers away from the camp in the west of the town, there was a very inconspicuous herdsman's tent. At 6 o'clock in the evening, Lei Sun, who was disguised as a herdsman, opened the tent flap and walked in. He said respectfully, "Sir, as expected, the west of the town has indeed increased the security." It turned out that this was where Ouyang Shuo was staying. Ouyang Shuo nodded. The enemy's reaction was not out of his expectations. According to Lei Sun, the commander-in-chief of the town, Rakshan, was not a simple person. "Contact all the battalions. Tonight we will act according to plan." Yes. At 7 o'clock in the evening, Ouyang Shuo walked out of the tent and rode on Black Whirlwind. Under the cover of the night, under Lei Sun's guidance, he began to inspect each camp. Every time they stopped at a station, Ouyang Shuo would take out barrel after barrel of fierce kerosene from his storage pouch and distribute it to the soldiers. In the grassland in July, the stars twinkled in the night sky, and the cool monsoon wind blew waves of green. Under the starlight, groups of cavalrymen walked out of the herdsmen's tents one after another, and placed barrels of fierce fire oil on the backpacks of the warhorses. The backpacks had been specially modified, and each side could hold 2 barrels of fierce fire oil. To be continued. Chapter 194. The cavalrymen of Shanghai County got on their horses and began to sneak into the hinterland of the western part of the town. When the cavalrymen set off, it was already 9 o'clock at night. They could only make out their surroundings with the help of the faint starlight. Coupled with the cover of the weeds, it was difficult to tell whether it was a human figure or something else. As the 100-man team that was sent out to investigate returned empty-handed, the commander-in-chief of the western part of the town issued another order to enforce martial law. The patrolling soldiers in the western part of the town had received orders from the commander-in-chief twice to increase their vigilance. However, there was not even a trace of a ghost that night. They couldn't help but let their guard down and yawn incessantly. Coupled with the fact that there had been no war in recent years, the Tianji tribe was used to being the king of the grasslands, so the soldiers couldn't help but slack off a little. The disappearance during the day was also interpreted as an accident. Perhaps the patrolling soldiers had sneaked into a girl's tent to have some fun. The patrolling soldiers ridiculed each other while flirting with each other to pass the time. "Sigh, don't you guys think that the marshal is being too cautious? He only lost a few patrolling soldiers, yet he's making such a big fuss. Our brothers have to suffer outside in the middle of the night," a soldier complained. "Bastard, how dare you speak ill of the marshal? Do you have a death wish?" The decurion leading the team reprimanded the soldier. Rakshan's prestige in the western part of the town was very high, so he had to be careful with his words. The soldier also knew that he had said the wrong thing in the spur of the moment. Fortunately, the decurion was his good friend, so he laughed and said, "Captain, I know I was wrong. Please don't report it." The military rules of the grasslands were very strict, and could even be considered cruel. If someone really took this matter seriously, then this soldier would not be able to bear the consequences. A whipping of the horse would definitely cause him to run. "Don't worry." The decurion didn't want to make a fuss. There were many mosquitoes on the grasslands in July, and it was especially difficult to endure. Fortunately, these soldiers were quite dedicated. Although they complained incessantly, they didn't leave their posts without permission. Not far from them, the Shanghai County cavalrymen dismounted and held the reins in their hands. Like a group of ghosts, they slowly approached the patrolling soldiers in the western part of the town. After entering the effective shooting range, the cavalrymen squatted on the ground and tried their best to hide their tracks. They drew their bows and nocked their arrows, killing the patrolling soldiers one by one without making any sound. The cavalrymen leading the charge were all elites of the various battalions. Their archery skills were outstanding. As for sticking close to them and assassinating them at close range, it was almost impossible in the grassland. The soldiers guarding the western perimeter of the town were constantly being eliminated. 5 kilometers away from the western camp, the security here was raised to another level. Furthermore, the sounds of fighting could easily alert the camp. Therefore, the cavalry of Shanhai County stopped advancing. Ouyang Shua rode on Black Whirlwind, gazing at the western town barracks in the distance. Because it was a permanent camp, the western town main camp was not like the previous Tianpiao tribe, which only had tents arranged in circles to form a defense. The camp in the western part of the town was no different from the camps in the Chinese plains. There was a tall wooden wall around it, and there were archery towers at the 4 corners. There was only a door at the south. With just 2,000 cavalrymen, it was impossible to take down such a camp. They could only fight in the wilderness. Moreover, the nomadic tribes were best at fighting in the wild. According to the intelligence, there were 5,000 cavalrymen in the western part of the town, 1,000 of them were heavy cavalry, and the rest 4,000 were light cavalry. Nomadic tribes would usually send light cavalry to lure the enemy, and then surround the enemy from the flanks. At the critical moment, the heavy cavalry would charge in and crush the enemy, deciding the outcome of the battle. The cavalrymen got off their horses and started setting up an oil formation in front of the western town barrack. This was Lin Yi's strategy: lure the enemy out of the camp, and then use the oil to form a fire barrier to stop the enemy from chasing. After the preparations were done, everyone retreated. 28th of July, 6 in the morning. The 1st Battalion of the vanguard was tasked with luring the enemy, and under Lin Yi's lead, they marched towards the western camp. All the guards along the way were shot down cleanly. Rakshan, who hadn't had a good night's sleep, woke up early. Before he could react, he received a report from a guard. "Commander, there's a group of bandits south of the camp. There's about 500 of them, and they're attacking the camp." Rakshan paused in disbelief. "You're talking about bandits? And there's only 500 of them. Who gave them the guts to attack our camp?" The guard didn't dare to be negligent, and replied with a serious face. "Yes, Commander. 500 bandits." "Let's go." Rakshan decided to take a look himself. Rakshan climbed up the archer tower of the camp and looked over. As expected, he saw a group of troops dressed like bandits, wiping out the guards on the perimeter. They were whistling non-stop, and their expressions were extremely arrogant. Rakshan couldn't tolerate this kind of naked provocation. He ordered a 1,000-man commander to lead his troops out of the camp and teach these arrogant bandits a lesson. The 1,000-man commander, Huha, received the order and was extremely excited. From his point of view, defeating the bandits in front of him was a piece of cake. This was a free reward. It seemed like the commander thought highly of him. 1,000 light cavalry shot out of the camp like a sharp arrow. Who would have thought that the bandits were a bunch of cowards? They looked good but were useless. When they saw the charging cavalry, they immediately turned around and ran away like a flock of sheep. They looked extremely pathetic. Relying on the speed advantage of the cyan beetle horses, Huha didn't give up. He immediately led his troops and chased after them. On the archer tower of the camp, Arasi, the advisor of the western town, looked at the gradually disappearing Gui division from his sight with a face full of confusion. He turned his head and said to Rakshan, "Commander, the situation doesn't seem right. These bandits came and left in a strange manner. Could it be a trap?" Rakshan nodded. "It's a little unusual. Order the rest of the troops to be on standby. With Huha's ability, even if the enemy is tricked, he should be able to retreat safely." "Understood." On the other side, Huha led his troops and chased for over 10 kilometers. They were about to catch up to the bandit. Suddenly, two groups of bandits charged out from the sides and immediately surrounded Gue division. Oh no, it's a trap. Hoo-ha immediately became alert. He knew that he had fallen into the enemy's ambush. Unfortunately, his troops were advancing at a high speed and couldn't stop for a while. The two groups of cavalrymen flanking him were like two sharp blades that pierced into the center of Gue division from both sides. Facing the light cavalry of the nomadic tribes, Ouyang Shuo wasn't stupid enough to compete with them in archery. Instead, he engaged in close combat. He used the advantages of the Tang blade and the armor to attack the enemy's weakness. The light cavalry of the nomadic tribes didn't have any defensive abilities. They only wore simple leather armor. Facing the Tang blade, it was almost a fatal strike. The sharp Tang blade easily cut open the enemy's leather armor. Every strike of the blade pierced the enemy's flesh. A chaotic battle ensued. With great difficulty, the Gue division began to stabilize their position and prepared to fight a tough battle with the enemy. At that moment, Lin Yi's men turned around and surrounded Bai's men. Hoo-ha immediately knew that there was nothing he could do. He decisively ordered his troops to retreat. Unfortunately, Ouyang Shuo didn't give him the chance to retreat. 2,000 cavalrymen of Shanhai County madly chased after Gue division. Blood dyed the grassland red. The neighing of the war horses resounded through the sky. After an hour of crazy killing, there were less than 200 people left of Gue division. They protected Hoo-ha and escaped from the encirclement. They fled toward the west side of the town's main camp. The cavalrymen of Shanhai County were still chasing after them. It seemed like they wanted to kill them all. Unfortunately, they were limited by the war horses. The distance between the two sides grew further and further, allowing Hoo-ha to escape successfully. Hoo-ha's escape was the result of Ouyang Shuo's indulgence. Ouyang Shuo's intention was to completely enrage Rakshan and lure the entire west side of the town out of the camp. The two groups, one chasing and the other escaping, quickly returned to the west side of the town's main camp. As expected, when Rakshan saw the fleeing Gue division and the bandits chasing after them, he couldn't help but be enraged. He shouted, "How dare you!" As he spoke, he immediately ran down the arrow tower and mounted his mount. It was a commander-level green beetle horse. He shouted, "Everyone, follow me and attack. We will support Hoo-ha and eliminate the bandit. Kill." The 4,000 cavalrymen of the west side of the town were ready to go. When Hoo-ha saw the reinforcements, he was overjoyed. He patted the green beetle horse under him and ran straight to the camp. On the other hand, Ouyang Shuo's army stopped and prepared to leave. Before leaving, Lin Yi used his inner force and shouted, "Rakshan, you little thief. Today, I will teach you a lesson. The next time you come, I will definitely take your head." As he spoke, he laughed loudly. He was extremely arrogant. Rakshan had never been humiliated like this before. Without saying anything, he led his troops and continued to chase after Hoo-ha. Although Hoo-ha had already told him about his encounter, Rakshan didn't believe that his opponents would have troops lying in ambush. Even if they did, with the 4,000 elite soldiers under his command, he had nothing to fear. On the prairie, the chase and the other escaping played out again. However, the pursuers and the escapees changed directions again. At this moment, the advantage of the green beetle horse's speed was fully displayed. In less than 10 minutes, Rakshan's troops would catch up and bring the enemies into his firing range. Looking at the fleeing enemies, Rakshan's expression was cold. It was as if he was looking at a group of dead people. Unfortunately, at this moment, Rakshan didn't know that they had already fallen into the meticulously planned trap of Shanhai County. He saw Lin Yi riding on the back of his horse. He took out a special arrow and lit it with a flint. Then, he turned his body on the horse's back and shot a fire arrow behind him. The fire arrow flew across the sky and accurately landed in the area where Rakshan's troops were. In an instant, the fire arrow ignited the fierce fire oil that had been poured on the grassland. The fierce fire oil formation this time wasn't in the shape of a long strip. Instead, the entire area was poured with fierce fire oil. With the help of the strong wind and the wild grass, the blazing flames engulfed Rakshan's troops in an instant. To be continued. Chapter 195. Amidst the raging flames, the helpless warriors let out tragic cries. Their bodies were covered in flames. When they fell from their horses into the sea of fire, they were instantly burnt to a crisp. The flames burned the grass, causing thick smoke to billow, suffocating people. Even with the strength of the green beetle horse, after being attacked by the flames and smoke, it became panic. The war horses were like headless flies in the thick smoke, bumping around without any sense of direction. The tight formation made it easy for the war horses to collide with their companions, causing both sides to be injured. The moment the flames ignited, Rakshan's face turned pale. He had a premonition that the enemy in front of him was definitely not some roving bandits. A huge conspiracy shrouded the sky above the Sky Order tribe. At the crucial moment, he had to take responsibility. He had to do his best to bring his men out of the flames and back to the Sky Order tribe's main camp. Rakshan was riding a leader-level green beetle horse, an existence that surpassed the purple-gold rank, like a divine beast. The green beetle horse neighed and was the first to charge out of the ring of flames. The other green beetle horses followed their leader's cry and charged out together. The moment Rakshan charged out, he once again felt despair. The cunning of the enemy was beyond his imagination. Outside the flames, the enemy's 2,000 cavalry were waiting in formation. At this moment, their faces no longer had the exaggerated insolence or wretchedness from before. Instead, they were expressionless and cold. In an instant, Rakshan guessed that the enemy was a regular army like them. Just as Rakshan stuck his head out, he was met with a rain of arrows. The dense rain of arrows mercilessly harvested the lucky ones who charged out of the flames. They had originally thought that escaping from the flames would be escaping from hell. Who would have thought that escaping from one hell to another was just escaping from hell? The continuous attacks drained the morale and courage of the soldiers in the western part of the town. The lucky ones who escaped the rain of arrows did not dare to have any other thoughts. They fled pathetically without any will to fight. Even Rakshan, who had escaped once again with the leader-level green beetle horse, did not think of forming an army to fight against the enemy. He only rode the green beetle horse and quickly fled towards the blessed lake. The cavalry of Shanghai County did not chase after the last lucky ones. A cornered beast will fight, and a cornered enemy will not be pursued. For the sake of survival, the survivors would erupt with unimaginable strength. Ouyang Shua didn't want to touch this group of injured wild beasts after achieving his objective in a situation where he had the upper hand and was in a disadvantageous position. It would only increase the casualties of his side for no reason. In the end, less than 1,000 of the 5,000 soldiers in the west managed to escape. Ouyang Shua no longer cared about the raging flames that were still burning. He led his troops around the raging flames and went straight to the western camp to harvest his spoils of war. At this time, the remaining guards of the camp had already fled without a trace. The elite cavalrymen of the nomadic tribes were usually equipped with 3 horses, 2 war horses and 1 pack horse. Pack horses were specially used to carry things. The 2 war horses were used in rotation to increase the mobility of the cavalry. This was because a war horse would consume a lot of energy when carrying a heavy load and would easily lose weight. Thus, it was very expensive. Generally speaking, a war horse would need to rest for a while after galloping for 20 kilometers. At this time, if there were 2 horses taking turns, they would naturally be able to achieve continuous rapid marching. Shanghai County had yet to engage in super long-distance battles. Hence, the cavalrymen were only equipped with 1 war horse. At most, it would be like the 1st Battalion of the Vanguard Battalion. Since they were equipped with green beetle horses, the horses gifted by the system when they changed professions could be used as backup horses or used as pack horses. As for the cavalry battalion of the mixed brigade, since they had changed professions from roving bandits to begin with, even if they weren't equipped with green beetle horses, they still had 2 war horses. As for the 2nd Battalion of the Vanguard Battalion and the Cavalry Battalion of the Pool Water County, they only had 1 warhorse gifted by the system. Overall, compared to the nomadic tribes, the cavalrymen of Shanghai County were still too shabby. Strictly speaking, the cavalrymen needed at least 2 auxiliary soldiers, one to take care of the horses and the other to carry the bags. In order to simplify things in the game, by default, there was no need for auxiliary soldiers. The cavalrymen would take care of everything by themselves. The spoils of war that Ouyang Shuo was referring to were the warhorses that were left in the western camp to be used in rotation. As expected, there were 5,000 green beetle horses and 5,000 ordinary pack horses in the stable of the camp. In addition to the 1,000 green beetle horses that were collected during the cleanup of the battlefield. In this battle, they had obtained a total of 6,000 green beetle horses, which was a huge fortune. According to the calculation of 5 gold coins for 1 green beetle horse, it would be 30,000 gold coins. In addition to the pack horses, the total value was more than 40,000 gold coins. Most importantly, these green beetle horses were priceless. Other than that, Ouyang Shuo also found 5,000 composite bows in the armory of the camp. With this batch of bows, Ouyang Shuo wanted to achieve 100% of the soldiers in Shanghai County being equipped with bows. After this battle, the shortage of warhorses in Shanghai County would be greatly filled. The price that they had to pay was the death of 150 cavalrymen. Because they had to travel a long distance, Ouyang Shuo could only order to bury the dead soldiers on the spot. The Sky Order tribe had already become a place of trouble, and it was not advisable to stay for long. The troops changed into green beetle horses and drove the remaining horses to the west. The direction of the retreat had been decided long ago. The troops could not retreat to the south, as it would easily expose the location of Shanghai County. They could not retreat to the north either, as it would bring trouble to Mulan Town. They could not retreat to the east, as the Sky Order tribe was still stationed in the east. Therefore, they could only retreat to the west. The vast group of horses could not cover their tracks at all. They could only rely on the speed of the green beetle horses to quickly retreat from the grassland before the Sky Order tribe and the other tribes could react. Because each cavalryman had 2 green beetle horses in rotation, the troops had traveled more than 80 kilometers before nightfall. Compared to the speed when they came, it was an order of magnitude higher. The next day, at 5 in the morning, the troops set off again. After a day of rapid marching, they directly traveled more than 100 kilometers, completely out of the grassland area occupied by the nomadic tribes, and into the wilderness. At this time, Ouyang Shuo finally felt relieved. When the troops marched during the day, they had encountered the nomadic tribes' patrol troops, and they were directly dealt with. However, the direction of their retreat was also exposed, and it was a good chance to set up a diversion. On the 3rd day, the troops turned south, and finally arrived at the upper reaches of the Friendship River before nightfall. At this time, the North Sea Fleet had already been waiting there for a long time. The reason why the North Sea Fleet could accurately grasp the direction of the troops' retreat was the Military Intelligence Department's Hummingbird. These little fellows provided by the Mystic Bird tribe looked inconspicuous, but in fact they were very useful. With the help of the North Sea Fleet, the troops smoothly crossed the Friendship River, and at this time they were finally completely safe. There were no forces that could threaten them on the banks of the Friendship River. No matter how big the bandit camp was, in front of the huge cavalry troops of Shanghai County, they could not resist. As for the players' territories, as long as Ouyang Shuo did not provoke them, they should be burning incense and praying to Buddha. How would they dare to come out and cause trouble? After crossing the river, the North Sea Fleet would rest by the riverbank for the night, and the next morning, they would go along the river and return to the North Sea Port Station. Recently, Pei Donglai had been stepping up the training of the troops, planning to counterattack Moon Island. After crossing the Friendship River, the troops walked for a full 2 days before returning to Shanghai County at 5:30 in the afternoon on the 2nd day of August. All in all, this wildfire operation had taken up a week's time. It really wasn't easy to travel such a long distance. After returning, before the vanguard battalion could rest and reorganize, they were driven back to the North Camp by Ouyang Shua to replace the 2 battalions of the mixed brigade. On the way back, they did not know how much this wildfire operation had caused in the grassland. Ouyang Shua was really worried about the North Camp. When the vanguard battalion returned, they did not bring a single green beetle horse. Of the 6,000 green beetle horses, 500 were left for the mixed brigade cavalry battalion, and the Pool Water Cavalry Battalion took another 500. As for the remaining 5,000, 3,000 were temporarily kept at the farm on the west side of the city, and the last 2,000 would be sent to the Storm Valley Military Horse Farm to expand the breeding scale of the military horse farm. Ouyang Shua was not extravagant enough to give a cavalry 2 green beetle horses. In his plan, the green beetle horses were mainly used for charging, and usually, the cavalry would still ride on the original war horses. As for the 5,000 pack horses, Ouyang Shua was going to hand them over to the carriage office. The carriages had been manufactured long ago, but without the horses, it was useless. Because of this matter, the chief of the carriage office, Zheng Shanpao, had been pestering Ouyang Shua. Now it was all settled in one go. As they landed in the county, it was a full 5 kilometers from the Lord's mansion to the North Gate. If they walked, it would take an hour. Therefore, it was imperative to develop the city's public transportation, which was horse carriages. With this batch of pack horses, the carriage office could consider setting up a carriage company in the city to solve all these problems. After returning, Ouyang Shua first went to the armory and stored the 5,000 composite bows. As for the distribution of the composite bows, the military office would naturally be in charge, and he did not need to worry. It was already 6 o'clock when he returned to the Lord's mansion. Ouyang Shua did not return to the office, and walked towards the backyard. "Brother, you're back." Binger's eyes were sharp, and she saw Ouyang Shua at a glance. She wanted to run over and let Ouyang Shua hug her. This could be considered the longest period of time that Ouyang Shua had been away from Binger in recent years. The little girl naturally missed him, and asked every day when her brother would come back. After going out for a week, Ouyang Shua was covered in dust and his body was dirty. Although the blood had been wiped away, it definitely did not smell good. In this state, how would he dare to hug Binger? He hurriedly stopped her and said, "Darling, brother is too dirty. Let brother wash up first, and then I'll accompany you to eat, okay?" Binger came over and sniffed, and there was indeed a strange smell. She said crisply, "Smelly?" Ouyang Shua smiled bitterly, and suddenly reached out his hand and pinched her tender face, leaving a stain. Before Binger could react, he turned and ran. To be continued. Chapter 196. August 3rd, 10 in the morning. Ouyang Shua reappeared in the Lord's office and began to deal with the backlog of government affairs. In the second half of July, the Wolf Mountain Mine and the North Twilight Salt Field had earned 8,100 gold coins, which Ouyang Shua had yet to distribute. Because of this, many people had yet to receive their July salaries. Actually, there was nothing much to distribute. The finance department directly transferred 5,100 gold coins. With the development of various projects, the finance department was a little tight. 5,100 gold coins was already the minimum amount. As for the remaining 3,000 gold coins, 1,000 gold coins were added to the Mulan Town branch of the Bank of the Four Seas. The last 2,000 gold coins were used to start up the Bank of the Four Seas branch in Black Lion Town. Ouyang Shua did not keep a single cent for himself. It was not that he did not need money, but that he had a huge fortune in his hands. It was the 120 gold-grade secret manuals. A month had passed, and the price of the secret manuals continued to rise. It was already approaching the 700 gold coins mark set by Ouyang Shua. Ouyang Shua was prepared to sell these secret manuals in the near future. He had already decided to buy a batch of food before the price of food rose. When the price of food rose, he would sell them and earn the price difference. If he remembered correctly, the market price of food had risen to 30 copper coins per unit at its peak. It had increased by 3 times. After deducting the 10% transaction tax, the cost of storing food, and the waste caused by transporting it back and forth, he could still get a return of 250%. This was much more affordable than the price of the secret manuals. Ouyang Shua had already ordered the construction department to build a huge granary in the western suburbs of the city. It was used to store the purchased food. After a month of construction, the Southwest University China Hall had basically taken shape. The 3 academies had also been established and were beginning to recruit students. All that was left was the construction of ancillary facilities so that teaching activities would not be affected. According to Ouyang Shua's instructions, all government officials in the 3 affiliated territories, except for a small number of civil officials, had to continue their education at the Southwest University China Hall. For this reason, the administration department had specially formulated a rotation training system for officials at all levels. This ensured that the departments could operate normally and that all officials would receive at least a month of paid education in the coming year. The finance department head, Cui Yingyu, took the initiative to study business at the School of Confucianism. It was foreseeable that in the near future, the officials of Shanghai County would once again be promoted. In addition, the Department of Physics also recruited skilled talents, completely breaking the low status of craftsmen in ancient times and raising the status of craftsmen in the territory. A large number of carpenters, farmers, fruit farmers, and other talented people were recruited into the Department of Physics to learn modern knowledge. This matter caused a huge uproar in the territory. Fortunately, there were no established clans or forces in the territory. Most of them were ordinary citizens, which was why this policy could be implemented. Apart from that, the official clinic had also officially started operating. In the afternoon, when Ouyang Shua was dealing with government affairs, he suddenly heard a system announcement. System announcement. Congratulations to player Killer Wolf for becoming the 9th Lord of a Level 1 county in the China server. Rewarding 600 merit points. System announcement. Congratulations to player Killer Wolf for becoming the 9th Lord of a Level 1 county in the China server. Rewarding 600 merit points. System announcement. Congratulations to player Killer Wolf for becoming the 9th Lord of a Level 1 county in the China server. Rewarding 600 merit points. The most exciting part of Azura Town's advancement was the dragon-seeking acupoint search. His dragon-seeking town had already fulfilled the basic conditions for applying for advancement, and the city walls had already been built. The only thing he was worried about was the lack of troop. According to the dragon-seeking acupoint search, the current dragon-seeking town, including the subsidiary territory, only had an army of 2,500 people. How could he dare to apply for advancement rashly? However, Azura Town's advancement meant that there was only one spot left in the top 10 of the China server. If he hesitated any longer, it was very likely that others would beat him to it. At this time, only Ouyang Shua could help with the dragon-seeking acupoint search. Without needing Ouyang Shua to say anything, the dragon-seeking acupoint search proposed that as long as Ouyang Shua was willing to help dragon-seeking town successfully advance, he would allow the Bank of the Four Seas to set up a branch in dragon-seeking town. The reason why the dragon-seeking acupoint search was so anxious was to fight for the honor of being in the top 10 of the China server. This honor should not be underestimated. If used well, it could bring tangible benefits. Putting everything else aside, Just being on the territory ranking could greatly increase Dragon Seeking Town's fame. It would be easier for Dragon Seeking Town to recruit elite players in the future, and it would even become more attractive to historical figures. Ouyang Shua pondered. To help Dragon Seeking Town advance, he had to start with money and materials. With money, Dragon Seeking Town could expand its army, and with materials, namely weapons and equipment, the combat power of the army could be increased. In the end, Ouyang Shua and the Dragon Seeking Acupoint Search reached an agreement. One Shanghai County would set up a branch of the Bank of the Four Seas in Dragon Seeking Town, and the initial reserve would not be less than 5,000 gold coins. Dragon Seeking Town would be responsible for the construction of the bank, and Shanghai County would guarantee that the funds would be in place within 3 days. 2 Shanghai County would sell 1,000 Tang swords and 1,000 composite bows to Dragon Seeking Town at the previously agreed price, which was 5 gold coins for a Tang sword and 10 gold coins for a bow, for a total of 15,000 gold coins. The funds would automatically be converted into a commercial loan of the Bank of the Four Seas for a year. Based on the monthly interest rate of the Bank of the Four Seas commercial loan of 3%, the monthly repayment would be equal to the principal and interest. The monthly repayment would be 1,490 gold coins, for a total of 17,880 gold coins, and the total interest would be 2,880 gold coins. This was because the progress of the game was much faster than the real world. Therefore, the monthly repayment here was basically equivalent to the annual repayment. A 1-year loan was equivalent to a 12-year loan in the real world. When the loan rose to 10,000 gold coins, the profitability of the Bank of the Four Seas began to show. Ouyang Shua was not worried that Dragon Seeking Town would not be able to repay the loan. After all, after the promotion to a county town, it was still possible to squeeze out more than 1,000 gold coins a month. Of course, it was not hard to imagine that Dragon Seeking Town would have a hard time in the coming year. On the second day after signing the agreement, Ouyang Shua rushed to the market and began to sell the manuals in his hands. In the market, the gold-level manuals of genuine quality were still in short supply. This was because the cultivation of genuine quality manuals required a lot of time. For example, Ouyang Shua's Inner Canon of the Yellow Larch took him 2.5 months to reach the 3rd level at the end of July. As for the 8 Extremities Fist Scripture and the Yang Family Spear Scripture, it also took him 2 or 3 months to reach the next level. And this was under the condition that there was someone to guide him, otherwise the progress would be even slower. Therefore, the higher the level of the manuals, the better it would be for him to start cultivating. The slightly ambitious players, including some high-end players, especially the figures in the top 10 guilds or big forces, would set the threshold for their cultivation of genuine quality manuals at the gold level. It would be a waste of time to cultivate below the gold level. Therefore, this was the best period for the sale of gold-level manuals. In the second year, some players would set their sights on the king-level manuals of a higher level. Ouyang Shua first sold the manuals one by one, setting the price of each at 700 gold coins. As expected, as soon as he put them up for sale, they were immediately bought. With Ouyang Shua's sale, the news of a large number of gold-level manuals appearing in the market immediately spread, attracting more players to come and buy. Wow, have you heard? A batch of gold-level manuals with real names suddenly appeared in the market. You're behind the times. Look, I've already bought one. Damn, you're really rich. You're a tycoon. Sigh, this money was pooled together by a group of friends. In the next few months, we'll have to eat pickled vegetables. In each of the big guilds, there were people in charge of monitoring the market at all times. Therefore, they were the first to react. The merchants of the various guilds did not dare to be negligent and immediately reported to the higher-ups of the guilds. This was because merchants could not make decisions on their own for transactions that exceeded a certain amount. After the leaders of the various guilds heard the news, they immediately began to raise funds. The ability of guilds to make money was still very terrifying. If they really gathered their funds, as long as each member contributed 1 gold coin, they would be able to raise tens of thousands of funds. Of course, this kind of thing could only be done once. Otherwise, the cohesion of the guild would disappear. At the current stage, the players who could take out 1 gold coin were all core players. Newbies who had just entered the game could not even take care of their own food and clothing. How could they have extra funds? Seeing that the sales were good, Ouyang Shua sold 20 manuals in a row. He quietly raised the price of each manual to 705 gold coins before smoothly selling another 20 manuals. At this time, most of the independent players had already withdrawn from the competition. The remaining ones were all big guilds or big factions. As for the remaining 80 manuals, Ouyang Shua simply packaged them up and sold them. Every 5 manuals was sold for 3,550 gold coins, and each unit was 710 gold coins. Ouyang Shua's sale was strategic. He did not sell them all at once. Instead, he sold them every half an hour or so. The time interval between each sale was not the same. This made the buyers unable to figure out his bottom line. Just how many manuals did he have left, and whether this would be his last sale? All the way until noon, Ouyang Shua still had 40 manuals in his hands. At this time, Ouyang Shua no longer put up orders. Instead, he turned around and left the market, returning to the Lord's mansion for lunch. The bustling sale of manuals seemed to have come to an end just like that. The factions that did not manage to get the manuals were extremely vexed. The reason they lost was because the speed at which they raised money was too slow. After resting at noon, Ouyang Shua once again leisurely walked to the market. This time, he simply made an order of 10 manuals. Each order was sold for 7,200 gold coins, which was equivalent to a unit price of 720 gold coins. The merchants who had been staring at the market and were on the verge of despair were wild with joy when they saw Ouyang Shua's orders. They did not even need to inform the higher-ups of the guild and directly bought the manuals. Just like that, the remaining 40 manuals were sold out in less than half an hour. To be continued. Chapter 197. In the end, the 120 manuals that Ouyang Shua had hoarded were sold for a total of 85,300 gold coins. After deducting the 10% transaction tax, he had earned 76,770 gold coins. The cost of these manuals was only 6,000 gold coins. The return on investment was more than 10 times. Ouyang Shua had thought of sending a batch of manuals to his aunt to avoid the transaction tax. However, when he thought that his aunt would definitely bargain with him, he decided not to do so. In Ouyang Shua's plan, he had to find an emperor-grade manual for his aunt. Even if he were to sell these gold-grade manuals to Snow Rose, they would only be used by the guild's core members. Ouyang Shua did not have any feelings for them, so there was no need for him to be a good person. Ouyang Shua's crazy selling was not the players who did not manage to buy the manuals, but Feng Qingyang. Jianxia County, the Overlord's office. Little sister, are we really not selling? Look, that guy raised the price of the last batch of manuals to 720 gold coins each. If we don't sell, I'm afraid the market will be saturated. Feng Qingyang was anxious. Sitting opposite Feng Qingyang was his younger sister, Feng Qinyue. Feng Qinyue looked calm. Don't worry, big brother. According to my prediction, the price of the manuals will definitely rise to more than 800 gold coins. As for the market saturation that you mentioned, there's even less to worry about. Didn't you see that the other party sold out all 120 manuals in less than a day? This shows the purchasing potential of China. Taking a step back, even if the market is temporarily saturated, it's because this batch of funds has been swept away by the other party. After a period of time, when the funds are sufficient again, the price of the manuals will definitely rise again. You must know that gold-grade manuals are the most important hurdle. If the level is too low, the players won't be satisfied. If the level is higher, the players won't be able to afford it. Therefore, it won't be outdated for a long time. If Ouyang Shua heard Feng Qingyue's analysis, he would definitely feel that she was his confidant. He could not help but feel that Feng Qingyue's foresight was indeed unique. All right, I believe you. Feng Qingyang chose to compromise. It was obvious that he trusted this sister of his. Ouyang Shua held the largest sum of funds ever since the game was launched. Of course, he wouldn't leave such a huge sum of money in his storage bag to rust. Ouyang Shua took out 5,000 gold coins and prepared it for the Bank of the Four Seas in Longshuan Town. He then transferred the remaining 1770 gold to the Bank of the Four Seas as reserve. That's right, in Ouyang Shua's eyes, the current 1,000 or 2,000 gold coins were just spare change. Apart from keeping 10,000 gold coins in reserve, the remaining 60,000 gold coins were all used to purchase food. The partner was naturally the Chui Merchant Group. Chui Yingyo's cousin, Chui Shoren, was in charge of liaising with Shanhai County. An order like this wasn't a small amount to the Chui clan merchant group. Chui Shoren could not imagine that a small county like Shanhai County could possess such a strong financial power. It had only been a month since they started working together, yet their transaction had already exceeded 70,000 gold coins. It was truly incredible. Initially, the Chui clan's Chamber of Commerce was only willing to cooperate with Shanhai County out of consideration for Chui Yingyu. Presently, the Chui clan merchant group had really started to take this cooperative partner seriously, and they were placed on an even more equal position. According to Chui Shoren, perhaps the silent Shanhai County would become an opportunity for the Chui clan merchant group to soar once again in the future. Chui Yingyo's accident was an enormous blow to the Chui clan merchant group. The loss of goods was secondary when the clan's caravan suffered a robbery. More importantly, it was a blow to the merchant group's reputation. In that incident, the Chui clan merchant group had lost over 100 core members, and the senior managers had lost over 10 people. Not to mention that the whereabouts of the Chui clan's eldest young miss was unknown. Chui Yingyo's reappearance was a new turning point for the Chui clan merchant group. In order to repay the Chui clan merchant group, it was also to deepen the sincerity of the cooperation between both parties. Ouyang Shua had also intentionally vaguely revealed his judgment of the food market in the next 3 months to Chui Shoren. As for how much profit the Chui clan merchant group could obtain from it, it would depend on how much confidence they had in Ouyang Shua and the courage they had to do business. Ouyang Shua couldn't decide that. The resource division took an entire 3 days to transport 60 million units of food from the market to the huge granary that had just been built in the western suburbs of the city. Many people in the territory were puzzled by Ouyang Shua's actions. They couldn't understand why their lord would purchase such a huge amount of food in one go. Ouyang Shua couldn't explain too much about this. In any case, the purchase of food didn't come from the territory's financial revenue. Even if they were puzzled, they didn't stop him. As for players like Sun Xiaoye, they didn't know much about Shanhai County or the management of the territory. They didn't have any idea about the amount of food. This was the so-called, the expert knows the ropes, while the layman just enjoys the show. During this period, Ouyang Shua rushed to dragon-seeking town with 1,000 tang sabers and 1,000 composite bows seized from Operation Wildfire. He even specially attended the opening ceremony of the Bank of the Four Seas branch in Dragon-Seeking Town. With Ouyang Shua's support, Dragon-Seeking Town expanded its army by 2,000 people without hesitation. The next day, they submitted an advancement application to the system. On the 10th of August, Dragon-Seeking Town would be besieged by bandit. Taking advantage of this period of time, Dragon-Seeking Town arranged for Qin Xiong to lead the troops to frantically suppress the bandit. This was to train the newly formed troops and ensure that they would have the strength to fight when defending the town. Of course, Wang Yuanfeng and his 3 bows and 8 bull's bed crossbows were free reinforcements for Ouyang Shuo. This was a treatment that every member of the Shanghai Alliance could enjoy. Now, the number of 3 bows and 8 bull's bed crossbows in Shanghai County had increased to 5. This was also the reason why Dragon-Seeking Town was so eager to apply for advancement. While Dragon-Seeking Town was busy promoting its territory, Ouyang Shuo was paying attention to the movements of the nomadic tribes while he was busy with another important matter. According to the memories of his previous life, the second battle would be triggered when the 10th level 1 county was born in the game. Ouyang Shuo had been preparing for this battle. This was only the final sprint. Lei Sun of the military intelligence had investigated the movements of the nomadic tribes that Ouyang Shuo was concerned about and reported to him one after another. It had been more than a week since Operation Wildfire. The news that the western part of Sky Border Town had been destroyed by foreign enemies had already spread to all the tribes on the grassland. There were many different opinions about the enemy this time. Some said it was the work of bandit. Whether it was the surviving warriors of Sky Border Tribe or other people who were lucky enough to encounter the enemy, they all pointed out that the enemy was wearing the clothes of bandits and behaved perversely. Some said it was the work of a certain tribe and that the bandits were just a cover. The tragic course of the battle had already been investigated by all parties. The leaders of the various tribes generally believed that the bandits did not have such meticulous tactical arrangements. There were also people who believed that it was the work of the feudal lord. The person who held this view was the former commander of the western part of the town, Lakeshan, who had been sent to prison by Monk and could be seen through at any time. On the day that Lakeshan returned to the headquarters, he was relieved of all his duties by Sky Border Tribe's Khan Monk and sent to prison. Whether or not Lakeshan could walk out of prison alive depended on Monk's mood. In the face of such a crushing defeat, although there was the element of surprise from the enemy, it was also a fact that Lakeshan's command was not good and he was impulsive and reckless. Therefore, Lakeshan confessed to his crimes and was willing to die to atone for his crimes. Perhaps only God knew what happened in the Khan's tent that night. They only knew that although Lakeshan was sent to prison, Khan Monk did not say when he would execute Lakeshan. Just like that, he was left hanging. The impact of the destruction of the western part of the town on the grassland was slowly becoming apparent. This time, it was no longer as lukewarm as the dawn operation. The most direct thing was that the middle-sized tribes in the west started to become restless. Without the restraint of the western part of the town, these middle-sized tribes were no longer willing to be restrained by the Sky Border Tribe. The small tribes were naturally terrified and uneasy. The Sky Border Tribe had always been their great backer. Now that their backer had lost an arm, the key was that they did not even know who the enemy was. Would such a backer still be able to protect them? If the small tribes were sheep, then the middle-sized tribes were hungry wolves. As for the Sky Border Tribe, they were lions on the grassland. The lion intimidated the wolves and protected the sheep. Now, the lion was injured and the wolves surrounded them. Although the wolves did not dare to attack the lion, they could at least extend their claws to the sheep at the side. Within the Sky Border Tribe, the enthusiasm for battle was also high. The Sky Border Tribe had been a lion for decades. Their complex as the king of the grassland had long been deeply rooted, and they could not tolerate the provocation of other tribes. For the defeat in the western part of the town, the tribe generally pointed the finger at the middle-sized tribes in the west. They suspected that they colluded with the bandits and directed this incident. The reason was very simple. The direction in which the bandits retreated was to the west. After the incident, Monk had sent the Khan's personal guards to chase after the enemy's tracks along the way. However, according to the commander of the personal guards, Bori Taichina, when they chased to the western wilderness, they completely lost traces of the enemy. It was as if they had disappeared into thin air. How did such a large number of bandits disappear with tens of thousands of horses? There was no need to think. There must be a tribe or even a few tribes that were covering for them. Even Monk could not suppress the desire for revenge within the tribe. On the contrary, the middle-sized tribes in the south, east, and north were collectively silent. Monk knew very well that this silence was only the final calm before the storm. Therefore, he tried his best to suppress the warlike faction within the tribe and temporarily did not want to start a war with the tribes in the west. Otherwise, if there were any mishaps, it would truly be beyond redemption. To be continued. Chapter 198. The grassland today was like a pile of dry firewood that could be ignited with a single spark. Before the prairie fire could burn, the market outside of Yi County quietly prospered. In the past few days, there had been herdsmen of unknown identities bringing large numbers of sheep, furs, and even horses to the market. They wanted to use these resources to trade for food and ironware with Yi County. Food was fine, but ironware was a restricted item. The county magistrate of Yi County, Zhou Haichen, did not dare to make a decision on his own. He immediately sent a letter to the headquarters to ask the Lord for instructions on how to deal with it. Ouyang Shua's strategy was to drag the nomadic tribes into the whirlpool of war. In this way they could not only reduce the threat they posed to Friendship County, but also profit from it. Needless to say, these mysterious buyers were definitely sent by various tribes, and most of them were from medium-sized tribes. They wanted to exchange for food and ironware. Even a fool would know what they wanted to do. Therefore, Ouyang Shua noted on the official letter that iron tools could not be directly traded, but he relaxed the restrictions on iron ore, allowing iron ore to freely circulate in the market. Ouyang Shua wasn't worried that after the iron ore flowed into the nomadic tribes, it would bring about a calamity. The growth of the nomadic tribes was far slower than the development of Shanghai County. By the time the grassland calmed down again, Shanghai County might already have the strength to crush them. A mere iron ore was nothing to them. Last month, when 9-Line was leading the team to map the territory, they discovered another iron mine 20 kilometers west of the territory. The Supplies Reserve Department had already arranged for miners to excavate the new mine. The new iron mine was only 10 kilometers away from the Friendship River. Iron ore would be transported by both land and water. They were first transported to the riverbank by wooden oxen, and then transported to the docks of Shanghai County by special boats. As a result, Shanghai County no longer lacked iron ore. Ouyang Shua also wrote down in the official letter that when trading with the nomadic tribes, the grain would be sold at twice the market price, which was 20 copper coins per unit. The iron ore would be sold at 3 times the market price, which was 300 copper coins per unit. Ouyang Shua wasn't doing this to take advantage of the situation. First of all, there were signs of fluctuations in food prices. It was estimated that by the end of August, prices would start to rise. At this time, if they were to use the price of 10 copper coins per unit, wouldn't that be a huge loss? As for iron ore, it was a controlled commodity, so naturally, the price had to be raised. He couldn't possibly say that Shanghai County was a Leifeng, a free porter for the nomadic tribes, right? Confiscating their duties was already the most benevolent thing they could do. After obtaining Ouyang Shua's approval, Zhou Haichen was full of enthusiasm. Yi County worked together with the Supplies Reserve Department to unload the iron ore directly at the Yi County pier and transport it to the market to be sold. On the 10th day of the 8th month, Longshuan town was besieged by bandit. Ouyang Shua didn't go to watch the battle. Instead, he patiently stayed in his territory and dealt with government affairs. At 6:00 in the evening, Ouyang Shua heard the system announcement. System announcement. Congratulations to player Dragon Seeking Acupoint for becoming the 10th Lord of a Level 1 county in the China server. Rewarding 400 merit points. System announcement. Congratulations to player Dragon-Seeking Acupoint for becoming the 10th Lord of a Level 1 county in the China server, rewarding 400 merit points. System Announcement. Congratulations to player Dragon-Seeking Acupoint for becoming the 10th Lord of a Level 1 county in the China server, rewarding 400 merit points. Originally, this kind of system announcement would not be able to attract the interest of the players. However, following this system announcement, another system announcement appeared. System Announcement. China has successfully promoted 10 county territories, triggering the battle system. The second battle, Mai's battle, will officially begin in 3 days. Please look forward to it. Friendly reminder. The Battle of Mai is a non-mandatory battle scenario mission. Only territories at the township level and above are eligible to participate. Compared to the first Battle of Zhuolu, the players were no longer clueless about the battle. The Battle of Zhuolu fully proved that participating in the battle was a huge gamble. The weak were prey to the strong. A powerhouse like Shanghai Town naturally made a lot of money. However, for ordinary players, the gains did not make up for the losses. Not only were their troops few in number, but their quality was also poor. They were unable to take the initiative in the battle. In the end, they could only be reduced to cannon fodder. Some lords excitedly brought 100 soldiers to participate in the battle. In the end, not only were they completely annihilated, but they only obtained a pitiful few hundred merit points. The input and output were completely out of proportion. Therefore, whether to participate in the battle or not was naturally up to the benevolent and the wise. Currently, there were more than 1,000 territories at the township level and above in China. In the end, no one knew how many lords volunteered to participate in the battle. Of course, for the members of the Shanghai Alliance, there was no such thing as a choice. Dragon-Seeking Acupuncture had just received everyone's congratulations on the Alliance channel when he received such a system announcement. He couldn't help but jump in fright. He jokingly said, "Damn, does this battle count as me starting it? Shouldn't the system give me a reward for something like this?" Bullshit. The Siege Lion was indignant. "Haha, little lion, you're just plain jealous." Dragon-Seeking Acupuncture was rarely calm. The Siege Lion sent a string of speechless emojis. "Great, I can finally earn merit points." Mulanwe was the happiest. She had been worrying about merit points. "Wui, which faction are you going to choose this time?" Bai Hua asked. The Battle of Mai, also known as King Wu's conquest of Zhou, was the decisive battle between King Wu of Zhou's allied army and the Shang dynasty's army in Mai. Because King Xian first conquered the Li in the northwest and then conquered the Dongyi in the southeast, although he won, he was militaristic and intensified social and class conflicts. In the end, he was defeated and the Shang dynasty was destroyed. This was how the history books described the Battle of Mai. However, according to Ouyang Shua's research, this battle had been overly glorified by the Confucians of later generations. The Western Zhou's destruction of the Shang dynasty and the Shang king were undoubtedly the most classic crimes of rebellion and regicide. There was no justice to speak of at all. The Battle of Mai was bloody and tragic, and it was far from how the later generations described it. It was a war where the Zhou people relied on their lofty morals to win without bloodshed. After the war, the Zhou army burned, killed, and looted in Zhaoga. There was no glorious image at all. The reason why the later generations described the battle as such was because Confucianism dominated the ideological and cultural landscape. Confucius, the originator of Confucianism, admired the Western Zhou system of rites and music. Therefore, the Confucian classics had to package and establish Western Zhou as the embodiment of justice and benevolence. Therefore, it was impossible for the Confucians to truly record the Battle of Mai, a battle where the Zhou people enforced justice on behalf of the heavens, as well as the bloody massacre and pillaging of Zhaoga. This was in line with the Confucians' motive of wiping out King Zhou's historical achievements and demonizing him. No matter what the truth of history was, out of consideration for his own interests, Ouyang Shua announced his choice in the Alliance Channel: "I choose the Shang dynasty." Mu Lanyue was surprised. Bai Hua asked directly, "Wui, you want to change the outcome of history?" "That's right," Ouyang Shua said bluntly. In the first battle of Zhuolu, Lord Chunshan and Wolf Warrior had already used bloody facts to tell the Overlord players how difficult it was to change the outcome of the battle. Now, Ouyang Shua had made an unexpected decision. It was inevitable that people would be puzzled. "Wui, are you confident?" Feng Qiuhuang asked. Ouyang Shua naturally did not dare to guarantee anything. "We don't know how Gaia predicted the specific battle scene. Therefore, I really don't have any confidence. I can only say that I did some preparatory work. Whether it will be effective or not is still unknown." Ouyang Shua was speaking the truth. In his previous life, he did not participate in the Battle of Mai, so the information he knew was very limited. Preparatory work? Bai Hua acutely sensed the abnormality in Ouyang Shua's words. He said in surprise, "Wui, do you mean that you knew about this battle ahead of time?" Ouyang Shua shook his head in amusement. "Of course not. I'm not an immortal. Through the Battle of Zhuolu, it's not difficult to discover that the battle Gaia chose was the most important or representative battle of a dynasty. Think about it, after the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, it was Xia, Shang, and Zhou. In this period, was there any battle more representative than the Battle of Mai? Therefore, I previously guessed that it was very likely that Gaia would choose this battle. However, because I wasn't sure, I didn't tell everyone." Ouyang Shua's words were half-truths. He pointed out Gaia's principles for choosing battles, but he hid the fact that he knew the truth ahead of time because of his rebirth. Only then did Bai Hua feel relieved. He said with a smile, "Wui, I trust your judgment. Choose the Shang dynasty camp." "I'll listen to Brother Wui." Mu Lanyue was a black-bellied person. Of course, she would not give up on Ouyang Shua. In the previous battle of Zhuolu, if not for Ouyang Shua, she would not have been able to achieve such a beautiful result. Ouyang Shua shook his head in amusement. "I'll still say the same thing. The Alliance will not force everyone to choose a camp. There is only one condition. Everyone must keep my choice of camp a secret. I do not wish for Lord Chunshan and the others to choose the opposing camp because of my existence." Ouyang Shua's words made everyone smile. Needless to say, as long as they chose the same camp as Ouyang Shua, the identity of the mutant representative would not fall to anyone else. This was naturally not what Lord Chunshan wanted to see. "I still feel that following you, Wui, is more reliable." Feng Qiuhuang also expressed his opinion. "Follow Big Brother and you'll have meat to eat." The siege lion was shrewd. He spoke concisely. Finally, only the dragon-seeking acupoint was left. This fellow thought himself clever in the previous battle of Zhuolu and wasted a fierce general like Qin Qiong. Compared to Bai Hua, his results were much worse. After suffering a loss, the dragon-seeking acupoint finally learned its lesson and obediently said, "I'll listen to Big Brother." You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.